The first golden ginkgo leaf spiraled down onto the old brick road, and just like that, autumn had arrived in Beijing. It was 1970. I woke up with a splitting headache, shivering in the cold, and nothing made sense. I remembered falling asleep with the heating on, but there was no heating here. No modern apartment. Just a cramped room in an old courtyard house, deep in a Beijing alley. That's when the memories hit me, all at once, like a flood. I had crossed over, traveled back in time to 1970, into the body of a 16-year-old boy who shared my name, Zhou Miyun. This version of me had a rough life. His mother died, giving birth to him. When he was 3, his father Zhou Qiheng married a woman named Yi Shetong, and a year later they had a son together, my half-brother, Zhou Hao. The original Zhou Miyun got into a street fight a couple of days ago, helping a friend out, and took a club to the back of the head. He collapsed on his bed and never really woke up again. That's when I took his place. From my new room in the East Wing, I could hear my father and stepmother arguing in the main house. She wanted to send me to the countryside. The government was calling on young people to go work in rural villages, and children of officials like my father were expected to lead by example. My father refused. He felt guilty enough already about my mother's death. He couldn't bear to send me away to suffer. But my stepmother had her own reasons. If they delayed my departure by 2 years, her own son Zhou Hao would be old enough to be sent instead. She couldn't let that happen. I rubbed the sore spot on the back of my head and sighed. No point fighting it. I walked into the main house and told them straight. Dad, I'm going to the neighborhood office to sign up. My father shot to his feet. Absolutely not. I stayed calm. Why not? They're calling for educated youth to go to the countryside. As an official son, I should set the example. I glanced at my stepmother. If I don't go, are you going to make my little brother go instead? He's only 12. My stepmother's eyes lit up. She rushed over, all smiles. Miyun, you really mean it? I mean what I say, I told her. My father's eyes went red. His voice shook. Son, I failed you. I couldn't protect your mother, and now I can't even protect you. I patted his arm. Don't talk like that, Dad. I'm just going to check what I need to prepare. At the neighborhood office, the worker behind the counter looked impressed. Not many young people volunteer these days. You've got spirit. So where do you want to go, Shaanxi Province or Heilongjiang Province? I thought fast. Shaanxi was dry and harsh. People there sometimes couldn't even get enough water, let alone food. But Heilongjiang was different. Sure, the winters were brutal, but the black soil up there was rich and fertile. If you were willing to work, you wouldn't go hungry. And the forests were full of useful things. Heilongjiang, I said without hesitation. I filled out the form and handed it back. The worker told me the next group would leave in about 2 months, and that someone would come notify me when the time came. But here's the thing. Right as I handed over that form, something strange happened. A clear chime rang inside my head. Ding. A voice followed. Congratulations, host. The Heaven Rewards Diligence system has been activated. A starter gift pack is included. Please collect it at your earliest convenience. I kept my face perfectly still, didn't let the worker notice a thing. But inside, my heart was pounding. I decided I'd figure it out once I got home. By the time I walked through the courtyard gate, it was noon. My stepmother came out of the kitchen wearing an apron, all warm smiles. Miyun, wash up. Lunch is ready. I made all your favorites today, braised eggplant, sweet and sour pork, and that egg custard you used to beg for as a kid. Thanks, I said. My little brother Zhou Hao came bouncing out of the house, looking up at me with bright eyes. Big brother, you're back. I reached over and ruffled his hair. Yeah. My father came out of the main room and sat at the table, an unlit cigarette between his fingers. He looked at me with something heavy in his eyes, something I couldn't quite name. Stop standing around, he said quietly. Sit down and eat before the food gets cold. Lunch was awkward. My stepmother kept fidgeting with her chopsticks, glancing at my father, wanting to say something but holding back. My father noticed and his brow furrowed, but before he could speak, I set down my bowl and said calmly, Dad, I've already signed up at the neighborhood office. Our group leaves in 2 months. I chose Heilongjiang. Heilongjiang, his frown deepened. That's so far. Wasn't there anywhere closer? Only 2 choices, Heilongjiang or Shaanxi. My little brother Zhou Hao looked up from his rice bowl, eyes wide, cheeks stuffed. Big brother, isn't Heilongjiang super cold? I heard your ears can freeze right off in winter. I glanced at him and smiled a little. Probably. Yeah. My father let out a long sigh and said nothing more. My stepmother jumped in quickly, all cheerful and helpful. Don't worry, Chihyung. We still have 2 months. I'll go buy fabric this afternoon and sew Muyun some thick quilts and padded coats. Plenty of them. He won't freeze, I promise. My father waved his hand weakly. I suppose that's all we can do. After the meal, I went straight back to my room in the east wing. I bolted the door, checked it twice, then sat on the bed with my heart hammering. I called out in my mind, "System, are you there?" Silence. Nothing at all. I tried again, more politely, "System, Grandpa?" Still nothing. "System, Dad." Dead silence. I flopped back on the bed and groaned. What kind of lousy system is this? Was I hallucinating? No way. I heard that chime clear as day, and there's definitely something new sitting in my head. I thought hard for a while, and then it hit me. The starter gift pack. I sat up and focused. Open the starter gift pack. Ding. Congratulations, host. You have received 1 portable storage space. I nearly shouted out loud. Deep inside my mind, I could feel it. A vast, empty space, just waiting to be filled. The excitement faded into mild frustration. So the system only talks when it feels like it? I called out a dozen times and got ignored. How am I supposed to figure out how this space works? The moment that thought crossed my mind, a pale blue, half-transparent screen appeared in front of my eyes, with crisp text laid out neatly. Host. Zhou, my physical stat was only 6. The average adult was a 10. My mental stat was 12, above average. Then came a list of skills, all carried over from my past life. Driving at level 3, cooking at level 2, computer skills at level 1, Bajiquan martial arts at level 1 with 87% proficiency, 12 road 10 kicks at level 1 with only 11%. Even the stuff I'd half learned from watching videos had been recorded. Heaven rewards diligence system, I muttered, rubbing my chin. So the name really does mean something. Everything I ever practiced counts. I grinned. Well then, let's see if training actually earns experience. I shoved the table and chair aside, cleared a space in my small room, and dropped into a horse stance. I sank my shoulders, raised my fists, and began the opening form of Bajiquan. Elbow strike cutting through the air, fists drawn in like embracing a mountain. The instant I finished the first move, ding. Bajiquan experience 1. My eyes lit up. I threw myself into it harder. Palm strikes whistling through the air, knee sweeps kicking up dust, elbow drops steady as stone, wrist locks fast as lightning. The chimes came one after another like firecrackers. Ding. Bajiquan experience 1. Ding. Bajiquan experience 1. Ding. Bajiquan experience 1. It was addictive. I kept going for half an hour straight, powering through the entire set before I finally stopped, breathing hard. I pulled up my stats. Bajiquan had jumped to level 2, 5% proficiency, 18 points of experience in 1 session. Then something even stranger happened. A warm current rose from deep in my belly and flowed through my whole body. Arms, legs, fingers, toes. The soreness in my muscles melted away like I'd just sunk into a hot spring. Every pore relaxed. At the same time, a rush of knowledge poured into my head. All those little details I'd never quite understood from watching tutorial videos. How to channel power from the waist into an elbow strike. How to keep fists coiled and ready. How to make a palm chop fast and precise. How to keep your base solid during a sweep. It all clicked into place, like it had been carved into my bones. I raised my arm and threw a chop. The speed and sharpness were nothing like before. I slapped my thigh and laughed. This system is incredible. Once I caught my breath, I turned my attention to the storage space. I grabbed a rough ceramic teacup from the table and focused my mind. Store. Nothing happened. The cup just sat there. I frowned, then tried holding the cup in my hand and concentrating again. In a blink, my hand was empty. The cup had vanished. I reached out with my mind and looked inside the space. There it was, the little cup, sitting all alone in that vast emptiness, chipped rim and all. I thought, come out. And just like that, the cup popped back into my hand with a soft tap. After about 15 minutes of experimenting, I had it all figured out. Anything I was physically touching, I could send into the space with a thought. I could check what was inside any time using my mind, and pull things back out just as easily. I ran my finger along the chipped edge of the teacup and smiled to myself. With this system and the storage space, Going to the countryside was going to be a whole different game. I knew exactly what life down there meant. Backbreaking farm work, earning points just to get a handful of grain, never quite enough to fill your belly. But now I had the space. I needed to start stockpiling supplies before I left. Food, meat, medicine, whatever I could get my hands on. There was also unfinished business. The guy who clubbed the original Zhou Muyun over the head. He wasn't getting away with it. I'm no pushover. In my past life, I grew up an orphan, clawing my way through the bottom of society. If someone hits me, I hit back. But first, I needed to get stronger. Over the next few days, the food at home got noticeably better. White flour buns at every meal, scrambled eggs every other day, even stewed meat once. My stepmother was all smiles. Now that I'd agreed to go, she had no worries left and was happy to fatten me up before I shipped out. I kept busy. Every morning before dawn, I'd stuff 2 buns in my pocket and head out to a grove of old locust trees outside the city where nobody went. There I'd train, Bajiquin for power, 12 road tan kicks for speed, set after set, hour after hour. One morning, just as I was heading out, my father stopped me. Without a word, he pulled a brown paper envelope from his pocket and pressed it into my hand. His fingers were trembling. "Take it," he said. "You'll be leaving soon. Go have some fun, buy whatever you want. Don't hold back." I squeezed the envelope. It was thick. I didn't refuse it. "Thanks, Dad," I said with a grin. "Go on," he said, waving me off, but his eyes were full of pain he couldn't hide. Around the corner, I ducked into a quiet spot and tore open the envelope. Inside was a stack of bills. 1s, 2s, 5s, 10s. I counted it all up, 300 yuan. In the 1970s, that was nearly a full year's wages for an ordinary worker. "Not bad, old man," I muttered, then sent the whole stack into my storage space with a thought. I headed to the grove and trained hard for 2 hours. When I stopped and pulled up my stats, my jaw nearly dropped. My physical stat had shot up from 6 to 11, already above the average adult. 12 road tan kicks had climbed to level 2. And there was something new on my panel, a line that read, National Martial Arts. Visible force, 10%. My fists felt sharper, my whole body humming with strength. After training, I didn't go home. I'd been spending every spare moment tracking down the people involved in that street fight. One by one, I'd found where they lived, checked them off my list. None of them were the one who swung the club. Tonight I checked out the textile factory's housing area, another dead end. The guy I was looking for wasn't there either. "You can run," I muttered, "but you can't hide forever." I wandered through the city instead, eventually making my way to a place I'd heard about, the black market. It was tucked away on the outskirts, backed by a stretch of woods. I wrapped a cloth over my face and approached the entrance. 2 men stepped out and blocked my path. "Buying or selling?" I said nothing, just pulled out a dime and handed it over. That was the rule. 1 dime to buy, 2 dimes to sell, and if you left and came back, you paid again. The guard saw I knew the drill and let me through. Inside, it was busier than I expected. Vendors lined both sides, their goods spread out on rough cloth. Cornmeal, cured meat, sweet potatoes, rice, white flour. Some sellers sat with nothing in front of them at all, just eyes scanning the crowd. I worked my way along the wall toward the back, and that's when something caught my eye. A small stall in the corner with nothing but a thin stack of old books laid out on faded blue cloth. I crouched down and started flipping through them. Treatise on Cold Damage, Compendium of Materia Medica, Essential Prescriptions of the Golden Cabinet. There were also a few handwritten guides on identifying medicinal herbs, the brushwork neat and elegant. These were old, really old. The seller was a man in his 40s, wearing a washed-out cotton shirt, a hint of faded dignity in his face. Not your typical black market peddler. I had a feeling his family background was something special. I tapped the books and kept my voice low. "How much?" He glanced around nervously. 5 yuan each. "Too expensive," I said flatly. 2 yuan each, and I'll take them all. "Brother, that's way too low." He leaned in closer. "These aren't cheap reprints. They're originals. Could even be the last copies in existence." I raised an eyebrow. "Originals? Last copies? And I'm supposed to just take your word for it?" He hesitated, then blurted out, "I'll be honest with you. These were passed down in my family. My ancestors were imperial physicians in the palace." I just stared at him, letting the silence do the work. He squirmed. Before he could say more, I spoke. cool and unhurried. Even if your grandfather was an imperial doctor, who's going to openly buy books like these in times like these? I might be the only person willing to spend money on them. I paused, letting my next words land carefully. And if anyone found out you had these old books, that wouldn't go well for you, would it? His face went white. I'd hit the nerve I was aiming for. He let out a heavy sigh. 2 yuan is really too low. Can't you add a little, not a cent more? I stood up as if to leave. 2 yuan each, and if you've got more like these at home, I'll buy those too. Take it or leave it. Wait, he grabbed my arm. Fine. You win. I'll sell. He gathered up the 8 books. I took them, and while pretending to stuff them into my bag, I sent them straight into my storage space. I counted out 16 yuan and handed the bills over. His fingers were shaking as he tucked the money into his inner pocket. He rolled up the blue cloth in a hurry and looked at me. So, shall we go get the rest? I scanned the alley entrance, checking for trouble, then nodded. Let's go. I followed the man for about half an hour, twisting through narrow alleys until we reached a rundown courtyard. The brick walls were crumbling, clotheslines crisscrossed overhead with patched-up old clothes, and the air smelled like coal smoke. This way, he whispered, leading me past a few doorways to a small abandoned room at the very back of the compound. He pulled out a rusty key, turned it twice, and pushed the door open. A dim bulb flickered on inside. I stepped in and looked around. The place was bare, a wooden table, 2 benches, and 2 large wooden chests in the corner, their lids covered in a thin layer of dust. I smiled. I figured you weren't just some street vendor. This isn't where you live. It's a storage room. The man let out a bitter sigh. You're sharp, brother. I had no choice. You know how things have been these past few years. I rented this place to hide what's left of my family's things. If I don't start selling, I can't even afford to eat. If these are heirlooms, I asked, why sell them at all? His head dropped lower. My family were doctors for generations, but the talent dried up by my father's time. Neither he nor I had any gift for medicine. These books are useless in our hands. In times like these, families like ours, we're just trying to survive. Believe me, if I had any other way, I'd never sell off what my ancestors left behind. I nodded. Let me see what you've got. He perked up and threw open one of the chests. A smell of old ink and aged paper hit me in the face. I crouched down and started going through the books, and my eyes got wider with every title. It wasn't just medical texts. There were martial arts manuals too. Tai Chi Manual, 8 Trigram Palm Essentials, Xingyi Fist Secrets, 8-Step Cicada Chasing Footwork. My heart was pounding. Even better, I found detailed editions of Bajiquan and 12 Road Tan Kicks, far more thorough than anything I'd been practicing from memory. These were the real thing, proper lineage transmissions. On top of that, there were books on feng shui, old Taoist texts, and journals full of strange tales and legends. Every single one was a treasure. I sorted through everything and counted roughly 170 books. I stood up and looked at him. I'll take them all, but I've only got 300 yuan on me right now. If you trust me, I'll take the books today and bring the rest of the money tomorrow morning. His eyes went wide. You want all of them? Brother, 300 is more than enough. Take them. In times like these, this stuff is nothing but trouble. Finding someone like you who actually knows what they're worth? I should be thanking my lucky stars. I handed over the 300 yuan without fuss. He crouched down and counted it 3 times, then tucked it carefully into his inner pocket. He glanced at the full chests and frowned. But how are you going to carry all this? It's heavy. I pointed at the blue cloth he'd used at his market stall. Wrap them up in that. I'll carry the bundle on my back. We packed all 170 books into a big bundle. I swung it onto my shoulder. With my physical stat now above average, the weight barely bothered me. We walked out together and parted ways at the mouth of the alley. The moment I turned into an empty lane where no one could see me, I sent the entire bundle into my storage space with a single thought. It vanished from my back in an instant. I couldn't help grinning. What a haul. By the time I got home, it was well past midnight. I crept through the gate, careful not to wake anyone, though honestly, nobody was going to scold me. My father just reminded me to stay safe whenever he saw me in the mornings. My stepmother was perfectly happy having me out of the house as much as possible. I collapsed onto my bed in the east wing, but sleep was the last thing on my mind. My head was spinning with everything I'd picked up today, all those martial arts manuals, the medical texts, the Taoist writings. My training schedule was about to get a lot more packed. But then my excitement faded, and reality crept back in. I was broke. Every last yuan of that 300 was gone. I had nothing left but a few coins, not even enough for a decent breakfast. The black market was a gold mine of hidden treasures, and if something good turned up again, I'd have no money to buy it. I clenched my fist in the dark. In my past life, I'd been dirt poor, an orphan stretching every penny. I swore I'd never live like that again. I had a cheat system and a storage space now. If I still ended up with empty pockets, what was the point of coming to this world? And once I got to the countryside, life would only get harder. Without money set aside, I'd have no safety net at all. But making money in this era? An ordinary worker earned maybe 30 or 40 yuan a month. Getting rich through honest means was nearly impossible. I lay staring at the cracked ceiling beam, thoughts churning, and a bold idea slowly took shape in my mind. What if I pulled off something big at the black market before I left? Most of those vendors were shady types anyway, speculators, smugglers, people dealing in things they shouldn't be. Not exactly innocent folk. I'm no saint. I survived my past life on grit and ruthlessness. In a world like this, being soft on others just meant being cruel to yourself. The idea burned brighter and brighter behind my eyes, growing clearer with every passing minute. I got up before dawn and headed to the old locust grove outside the city. This time, I trained differently. I threw out everything I'd been doing from memory and followed the ancient manual step by step. Proper shoulder positioning, breathing from the belly, using the twist of my waist to power every elbow strike, hiding explosive force inside every palm chop. Each movement I corrected, polished, repeated until sweat rolled down my face and my whole body felt alive. After Bajiquan, I moved on to 12 road 10 kicks, then worked through Tai Chi, 8 trigram palm, Shingy fist, and the 8-step cicada chasing footwork. Each style had its own flavor. Tai Chi was smooth and flowing. Shingy was hard and explosive. 8 trigram palm was slippery and unpredictable. Half the day slipped by before I even noticed. When I pulled up my stats at noon, I liked what I saw. My physical stat had climbed to 13, well beyond the average adult. My martial arts realm had reached visible force at 18%. I clenched my fist and could feel it. I was at least 30% stronger than before. My routine settled into a steady rhythm. Train in the morning, hunt for information in the afternoon, visit the black market at night. Every day, the same 3 things. A whole month passed like that. Then one evening, crouched under an old tree near the steel factory's housing area, I finally spotted him. The one who'd cracked the original Zhou Miyun's skull with a club. I didn't know his name. He was some steel factory kid, a troublemaker who spent his days gambling and drinking with his lowlife friends, stumbling home drunk in the middle of the night. I tailed him for 7 days straight, patient as a leopard waiting in tall grass, watching his habits, learning his routes. But he was never alone. Until one night, he finally was. The narrow alley outside the factory housing was dim, the street lamp barely casting any light through the tree branches. I'd been waiting in the shadows for hours, gripping a smooth wooden club I'd prepared, same size, same weight as the one that had been used on me. Footsteps approached, unsteady, carrying the smell of liquor. He was humming some off-key tune, swaying his way into the alley. No one behind him. I moved. Thanks to weeks of practicing the cicada-chasing footwork, my steps were silent, like a shadow glued to his back. You hit me with a club from behind, I thought coldly. Tonight, I returned the favor. I gathered every ounce of strength into my arm and swung the club down hard on the back of his head. The crack echoed through the empty alley. The club snapped in half. He staggered, warm blood running down his neck, and turned around with terrified eyes. His fingers shook as he pointed at me. You. Who are? He didn't finish. His eyes rolled back, and he dropped to the ground, out cold. I crouched down and searched him without hesitation. My fingers found a hard cloth pouch. Inside, 85 yuan. Not bad. I pocketed the money without a second thought. I needed it. I looked at him lying there unconscious and felt nothing. In this era, people disappeared all the time and nobody asked questions. With a single thought, I pulled his body into my storage space. Once I got to the countryside, I'd dump him in some remote mountain ravine. The wolves and wildcats would take care of the rest. I dusted off my hands and disappeared into the night. Over the next 7 days, something loosened inside me. That knot of anger I'd been carrying was gone, and my training flowed better than ever. Every punch, every kick came easier, sharper. My stats climbed visibly day after day. Then one afternoon, someone knocked on the courtyard gate. I opened it and found a worker from the neighborhood office, holding a red paper notice. Comrade Jomuyan, you leave for the countryside in 1 week. Here's your official notice. He also mentioned a 250 yuan resettlement subsidy, but explained it wouldn't come to me directly. The money was managed by the government, earmarked for building housing at the youth settlement, covering basic living expenses for the first 6 months to a year, buying farm tools and cookware, paying for the train journey to Heilongjiang, and keeping a small reserve for medical emergencies. All handled by the organization, none of it pocket money. I knew the reality would probably fall short of the policy on paper, but there was no point worrying about that. I thanked the man, saw him off, and stood in the doorway holding that notice for a long time. 1 week. Then I'd be heading to Heilongjiang. My life as a sent-down youth was about to begin for real. At dinner, I set down my chopsticks and told them plainly, Dad, the neighborhood office came today. I leave for Heilongjiang in 1 week. My father's chopsticks froze midair. That soon? He let out a heavy sigh. If I'd known, I would have pushed harder to delay it. At least let you stay through the new year. My stepmother jumped in smoothly. Chiheng, there's nothing we can do. Policy is policy. Then she turned to me with her warmest smile. Miyun, don't worry. I've already made you 3 thick padded coats and 2 new quilts, stuffed full of cotton. You won't freeze up north, I promise. My father looked at her and asked quietly how much savings we had left. She didn't miss a beat, stood up, went to the back room, and came out with a fat brown envelope. She placed it right in front of me. Here, Miyun. 1,000 yuan, 50 jin of national grain coupons, and some industrial vouchers. So you'll have something to get by on, 1,000 yuan. In this era, that was enough for an ordinary family to live on for years. My father's tense face softened a little. He nodded at her. You did well. I took the envelope without fuss. Thank you, Auntie, but I wasn't fooled. She wasn't giving me this money out of love. She was buying me off, paying to make sure I never came back, so her precious Zhou Hao could stay safely in the city without a worry in the world. To her, 1,000 yuan was a bargain price. Back in my room, I checked my stats. After more than a month of relentless training, the progress was clear. My physical stat had hit 18, nearly double what it was when I started. My visible force realm was at 98%. Every martial art I'd been practicing had reached level 3, but the gains were slowing down. Each point was harder to earn now. It was time to move on to the plan. That night, I dressed in dark clothes, pulled my cap low over my face, and slipped out toward the black market. I'd been there every evening for weeks and knew the layout like the back of my hand. More importantly, I'd been watching a particular spot, a small courtyard in a quiet alley next to the market. That was where the black market bosses stored their most valuable goods. 5 strong men guarded it in shifts around the clock. My plan was simple. Wait until the dead of night, when the guards were drowsy, then clean the place out. I hid in the shadows outside the wall and waited for hours. The night air turned cold. Finally, just as the faintest gray light crept into the sky, the guards started dropping. 3 of them gave up and went inside to sleep. The last 2 sat by the gate, heads drooping, eyelids heavy, their wooden clubs tapping the ground in a lazy rhythm. Now, I moved like a cat. 1 light push off the wall, and I was over it, landing inside without a sound. Not a single leaf disturbed. The storage room was in the corner of the yard, locked with a brass padlock. I didn't bother picking it. 1 thought, and the lock vanished into my storage space. I eased the door open a crack and peered inside. My breath caught. It was a gold mine. Sacks of white flour and cornmeal piled high against one wall. Dried sweet potatoes stacked in heaps. Cured meat and dried fish hanging from the rafters. Bolts of fabric, bales of cotton, blocks of brown sugar in the corners. And crates of cigarettes, liquor, and tea. All of it the kind of stuff money alone couldn't buy in this era. I didn't waste a second. Standing right there in the doorway, I reached out with my mind and pulled everything into my storage space. Item after item, pile after pile. In minutes, the entire room was stripped bare. Not a single grain of cornmeal left on the floor. I slipped back over the wall and melted into the morning fog as if I'd never been there. When the 5 guards woke up and found the storeroom completely empty, they nearly lost their minds. They sat on the ground staring at each other, white as ghosts. They knew what this meant. When the bosses found out, they were dead men. So they did the only thing they could. They packed their things and ran, vanishing without a trace. By the time the black market boss heard what happened, days had passed. He was furious, convinced the 5 guards had stolen everything and fled. He sent people all over the city to hunt them down. But after weeks of searching, not a single clue turned up. Eventually, the whole thing just faded away. Nobody ever suspected the real thief. I got back to my room in the dead of night, collapsed onto the bed without even taking off my clothes, and passed out cold. Even with my improved body, that kind of night takes it out of you. I didn't wake up until 3 or 4 in the afternoon. My stomach was growling fiercely. I found 2 leftover buns in the kitchen, washed them down with water, and sat at the table to think. The haul from last night was massive. My storage space was packed like a mountain with supplies. Enough to live comfortably in Heilongjiang for years. But I was still short on actual money. Supplies were great, but in this era, you always needed cash and hard currency on hand, whether in the city or the countryside. I couldn't pull another stunt like the black market raid, though. That was a lawless place where nobody dug too deep. But robbing someone's home? If they were important, the investigation would be serious. Then an idea hit me. Beijing was an ancient capital. When the Qing dynasty fell, it left behind countless noble families. Princes, lords, their descendants scattered everywhere. I'd read in books from my past life that those old aristocratic families loved to build hidden vaults beneath their mansions to store gold and silver, keeping it safe through wars and upheaval. For the next 4 days, I combed through half the old neighborhoods in Beijing. I broke into abandoned estates, former prince mansions, old government officials' homes, even a crumbling princess residence. But every place was the same story. Either someone had already cleaned it out, or there was nothing to find. Not a single coin. I was starting to lose hope. Then on the 5th evening, I wandered into a narrow alley I hadn't tried before. At the very end stood a grand 4-courtyard compound. The red lacquer doors were sealed shut with rust, weeds choked the entrance, and half the roof tiles had fallen in. But I spotted the carvings on the gate. Qing dynasty royal style, the kind only a prince's household was allowed to use. My heart started beating faster. I climbed over a collapsed section of the back wall and landed inside. The yard was a jungle of wild grass taller than me, with broken pillars and shattered tiles everywhere. I headed straight for the spots old books said wealthy families liked to hide their vaults, behind decorative rock gardens, near spirit walls, under old trees. Behind the rock garden in the main courtyard, I found a loose stone slab. The cracks were packed with dust. Nobody had touched it in years. I crouched down and heaved. The slab must have weighed over 100 pounds, but with my strength now, it was nothing. Underneath, a dark hole, breathing out damp air and the faint smell of old copper. I lit a match and climbed down the stone steps. The underground room was small, maybe 10 square meters. Lined up neatly inside were over a dozen large redwood chests, each sealed with yellowed strips covered in Manchu writing. I pried open the first chest. Gold. The whole thing was packed with gold bars, each one palm-sized and heavy, the kind old-timers called big yellow fish. I opened the next chest. More gold. And the next. Every single one was full of gold bars. I didn't waste time counting. I pulled every last chest into my storage space. All of them, gold and all. I sealed the stone slab back into place, dusted off my hands, and slipped out of the compound like I'd never been there. Walking home through the darkening alley, my steps felt light enough to fly. Food, supplies, cash, gold. I had everything now. All I had to do was wait 2 more days. I spent those last 2 days quietly at home, resting, no more training. Just waiting. On the morning I left, my family came to the station to see me off. My father stood there struggling to hold it together, his eyes red. He started to reach for my shoulder, then stopped. "Be careful in Heilongjiang," he said, his voice tight. "Take care of yourself. If things get hard, write to me. I'll figure something out. I'll be fine, Dad. Look after yourself, too." My stepmother stood to the side with a polite smile and said, "Safe travels." But there wasn't a trace of sadness in her eyes, just relief. My little brother Zhou bounced around happily, tugging at his mother's sleeve. not a care in the world. I turned and walked away carrying a small backpack and a stuffed cloth bag, just some clothes and the padded coats my stepmother had made, all for show. Everything that mattered was already in my storage space. The train station was packed with families saying goodbye and young people heading to the countryside. I squeezed onto the green train, found my seat, a window spot, luckily, and shoved my bag underneath. I sat down and watched the platform slowly slide away. 5 days on this train to Heilongjiang. A window seat to rest and watch the world go by? Not a bad start. The train whistle blew. I pushed open the window and leaned out, waving to my father on the platform. Go home, Dad. Don't just stand there. He kept calling out reminders. My stepmother waved with a thin smile that didn't reach her eyes. Zhou Hao was hanging on the railing, gawking at the train cars with pure curiosity. The train started to move, and their figures shrank smaller and smaller until they were gone. I closed the window and settled in. Before long, 3 people came down the aisle and sat across from me. You could tell right away they were sent-down youth like me, faded cotton clothes, canvas bags in hand. The guy sitting directly opposite was thin and pale, about 20, with a bookish look about him. Beside him were 2 young women, around the same age, whispering to each other like old friends. One had soft, gentle features with a faint dimple, the other had lively upturned eyes. 2 more girls took the seats next to me. Both had that clean, unadorned look you only see in this era. No makeup, just natural faces with an honest freshness to them. The car filled up fast. Chatter, the clatter of luggage, and then the steady rhythm of wheels on tracks as the train pulled north. The 3 across from me started talking first. The guy was quiet, but the 2 girls chatted easily. Then, the way girls do, all 4 women somehow became instant friends within minutes, heads together, giggling and whispering. I glanced over and thought to myself, women really are something. 1 sentence and they're best friends. With nothing better to do, I pulled out a copy of Introduction to Traditional Chinese Medicine from my bag, a common book you could buy anywhere, perfectly safe to read in public. The rare old medical texts from the black market stayed hidden deep in my storage space. I'd barely read 2 pages when the guy across from me spoke up. Are you studying medicine? Before I could answer, he smiled and introduced himself. I'm Li Qing, heading to Heilongjiang. The girl beside him followed, her voice soft and warm. I'm Su Jingshu. I'm Su Qingru, her younger sister. The other girl chimed in brightly. We're all from the steel factory area, same as Li Qing. The 2 girls next to me joined in. The one on my left was louder, clearly the lively type. I'm Wang Jing. My family works at the textile factory. The quiet one on my right said gently, I'm Yongling, from the East District. They all turned to me expectantly. Zhou Muyun, I said, and went back to my book. As I turned the page, the system chimed in my head. Ding. Traditional Chinese Medicine Experience 1. Ding. Traditional Chinese Medicine Experience 1. Ding. Traditional Chinese Medicine Experience 1. The notifications kept coming, one after another. I kept my face blank, turning pages at a steady pace, but my ears were wide open. I quietly pieced together everyone's background from their chatter. Li Qing was 21. His father was a workshop supervisor at the steel plant. The Su sisters, Jingshu was 21, Qingru was 19. Their family had sent both daughters to the countryside so their younger brother could stay in the city. Wang Jing was 19, the loudest and most cheerful of the bunch. Yang Ling was 20, from a cadre family. Both parents worked at the district government. Around noon, the smell of food started drifting through the car. Everyone dug into their bags for lunch. I watched quietly and could read each family's situation from what they'd packed. Yang Ling opened a floral enamel lunchbox, 2 boiled eggs and 2 fluffy white flour buns, with a small jar of pickled cucumbers on the side. Cadre family, you could tell. Li Qing had corn and wheat mixed pancakes with sesame crisped on the edges, plus 2 salted duck eggs in a glass jar. The Su sisters shared steamed buns made from a mix of white and coarse flour, along with thin-sliced pickled radish tied with red string. Wang Jing dumped her bag out without ceremony. 3 thick buckwheat pancakes, a salted duck egg, and a lump of pickled vegetables wrapped in oil paper. My mom was afraid I'd go hungry, she said through a mouthful. These are built to last. Everyone had more or less the same thing: flatbread, buns, salted eggs, pickles. the best an ordinary working family could manage. Only Yongling's white eggs and pure wheat buns stood out. I fished out 2 white flour buns my stepmother had tossed into my bag, plus a little bit of pickled mustard greens I'd prepared myself. Nothing fancy. I ate slowly by the window, keeping to myself. Su Qingru noticed my plain meal and held out one of her salted duck eggs. Zhou Miyun, try this, my mom made them. They're really oily and good. I shook my head. No thanks. This is plenty. She smiled and put it back without pushing. We all ate our lunches in the stuffy car, watching fields roll past the window, trading a few words here and there. It had that simple, warm feeling of people sharing a long road together. The days blurred together on that train. The clatter of wheels on tracks became the soundtrack of my life, and the view outside slowly shifted from green farmland to vast, empty plains, with yellow dust whipping past the windows. I was the quietest person in the car. I barely moved from my window seat, sleeping with my arm as a pillow when I was tired, reading whenever I was awake. The other 5 chatted endlessly, swapping stories about home and guessing what Heilongjiang would be like. When they got tired, they'd lean against each other and nap. Easy, carefree. Their food didn't hold up well, though. By the 2nd and 3rd day, the flatbread had gone hard, the buns were stale, and the salted eggs had lost their flavor. Yangling managed to warm her eggs with hot water from the kettle between cars, but that was about the best anyone could do. None of that was a problem for me. My storage space kept everything exactly as it was when I put it in. Warm buns stayed warm. Braised meat stayed tender. I just had to be careful. I'd wait until everyone was asleep or deep in conversation, then quietly pull food out, eat fast, and put everything back. No one ever noticed. When I had a free moment, I checked my stats. The numbers made me smile. My visible force realm had reached 99%, just a hair away from a breakthrough. My medical skill had crept up too, though slowly. The basic textbook I'd been reading could only take me so far. Real progress would need the old medical classics and hands-on practice. I finished the first book and pulled out the Barefoot Doctor's Handbook, another common medical guide, nothing suspicious. The system chimes kept ticking away in my head as I read. Zhou Miyun, you switched books. Su Qingru was sitting across from me now, peering at me with curious eyes. At some point, they'd rearranged seats. Li Qing had given the sisters the window spots so they could sleep more comfortably, which put Qingru right across from me. Wang Jing and Yang Ling had been eyeing my window seat too, probably hoping I'd offer to swap. I didn't. I liked my spot, and I wasn't about to give it up just to be polite. Did you finish the other one? She asked. Yeah. Can I borrow it? I'm so bored I could scream. We've talked about everything there is to talk about. Sure. I handed her the medical textbook. She took it like it was a gift, thanked me twice, and buried her face in the pages with a happy grin. Li Qing leaned over. Got any more books I could borrow? Just these 2, I said, holding up the one in my hand. And I'm still reading this one. He took the hint and leaned back without pushing it. A minute later, he was snoring. The days crawled by. Qingru read quietly. The car hummed with its endless rhythm, and the empty plains outside stretched on and on toward the unknown. Then, on the 5th day, the train finally slowed. A long whistle cut through the air. We'd arrived, Xuanca County, Heilongjiang Province. The car erupted. Everyone jolted awake, stretching and groaning about how stiff they were. Su Qingru pressed her face to the window. We're here. We're really here. She scrambled for her bag in a panic until her sister calmly held her hand and told her to slow down. Wang Jing stretched her arms wide and announced in her booming voice, Finally. 5 days on this thing, and my bones are falling apart. I tucked the handbook into my bag and followed the crowd toward the door. The moment the doors cracked open, the Heilongjiang wind hit us, sharp, biting cold, nothing like anything back in Beijing. Everyone hunched their shoulders and shivered. It's freezing. Qingru hugged herself, pulling her jacket tight. And this is only the beginning. Li Qing walked beside the sisters, taking the heavy bag from Jingshu's hands. He glanced at me. Need help with yours? No. My bag weighed next to nothing compared to what my body could handle now. I stepped off the train ahead of them. We stood on the platform, cold concrete under our feet, low brick buildings around us, and beyond them, an endless stretch of open land under the widest, bluest sky I'd ever seen. The wind whipped through our hair and cut right through our clothes. The other young people clutched their bags and stared at this strange new world with a mix of confusion and nervousness on their faces. I just looked around calmly, scanning the platform until I spotted the commune workers holding up signs to collect us. No anxiety, no fear. Hey Longjiang. I was finally here. The real journey was just beginning. The train doors opened, and over 300 young people poured out onto the platform, bags in hand, the cold Heilongjiang wind cutting through our clothes. The air smelled like dirt and wild grass, nothing like Beijing. Along the platform, commune workers in padded cotton coats held up red-painted wooden signs, shouting in thick local dialect. Border Commune, gather here. Xinqing Commune this way. Pine Tree Valley Commune. Where's Pine Tree Valley? Su Qingru spotted our sign first. There, Pine Tree Valley. That's us. She grabbed her sister's arm and pointed. Li Qing nodded. Let's go. I picked up my bag and followed. My assignment notice said Pine Tree Valley too. Su Jingshu noticed me and smiled. You're going to Pine Tree Valley as well? Yeah, I said. Wang Jing and Yang Ling were heading to different communes. Wang Jing slapped Qingru on the shoulder before leaving. Take care of yourself out there. At least you've got 3 familiar faces. We said our goodbyes and they walked off with their bags. About 26 more young people gathered around our sign, bringing our group to 30. The man in charge was a big fellow around 40 with a thick beard and a voice like a gong. He counted heads, then barked, Pine Tree Valley, all 30 accounted for. No dawdling. Follow me. Outside the station, an open-top tractor waited on a dirt road, its iron flatbed wiped clean but still streaked with mud. Everybody on, the bearded man shouted. Squeeze in. It's a long ride. The sooner we leave, the sooner we get there. We climbed in, bags clanging against enamel cups and wooden boxes. The flatbed was packed, elbows against elbows, legs pressed together, no room to move. Qingru stumbled getting on, and Li Qing caught her arm, then helped Jingshu lift her heavy bag into the corner. I found a spot near the side rail, one hand gripping the edge, the other holding my bag. Steady on my feet, no matter how the tractor lurched. I glanced around at the other young people. Most were around 20, their faces a mix of nervousness and excitement. Mine showed nothing. I just watched the winding dirt road ahead and knew that once this tractor moved, the real chapter was starting. The engine sputtered to life with a cloud of black smoke, and we rattled off down the bumpy road, kicking up a trail of yellow dust. The ride was brutal. Every rut and pothole sent us swaying into each other. The wind got fiercer, stinging our faces. At first people tried to look at the scenery. Open plains, scraggly pines. But soon everyone was just gritting their teeth and holding on. My back is going to snap, Qingru muttered, leaning against her sister, hair blown into a mess. How much longer? Jingshu patted her gently. Almost there. Hang on a little more, Li Qing grinned. Still better than being curled up on that train. At least there'll be hot food at the commune. I was the only one who didn't sway. My feet might as well have been nailed to the floor. I watched the sun sink toward the horizon, the orange light fading, trees turning into dark silhouettes. We had to be close. About half an hour later, the tractor finally slowed and clanked to a stop on an open patch of ground. We're here. Pine Tree Valley Commune Committee. Everybody off. The bearded man jumped down first. Grab your things. Don't leave anything behind. Line up in 3 rows. You're about to be assigned to your production teams. We scrambled off, rubbing sore legs, grabbing scattered bags. Someone nearly stepped on somebody else's bundle. Someone shouted about a missing enamel cup. Eventually, we managed to form 3 crooked rows, all 30 of us. I stood at the back and took in the scene. A few mud brick buildings huddled together, a faded wooden sign reading, Pine Tree Valley Commune Committee, hanging on one wall. 2 worn benches by the door. A few old poplar trees in the yard. The committee building's wooden door creaked open and several people stepped out. In front was a middle-aged man in a washed-out mouse suit, hair neatly combed, clutching a brown paper ledger, clearly a commune official. Behind him came about a dozen men with dark, weathered skin and thick calluses on their hands. Some carried hoe handles. Some had tobacco pouches tucked in their belts, their rough clothes flecked with dirt. These were people who worked the land every day of their lives. I knew right away. These were the team leaders from the different production brigades under Pine Tree Valley, here to collect their assigned youth. The official in front cleared his throat. Welcome, Comrades, to Pine Tree Valley Commune. I'm Deputy Secretary Wong. Behind me are the leaders of each production brigade. I'm going to call names now. When you hear yours, go with the brigade leader assigned to you. Understood? Understood. All 30 of us answered together, voices tired but tense, every pair of eyes locked on the ledger in his hands. Deputy Secretary Wong pulled out his thick ledger and started calling names. Everyone went dead quiet, eyes locked on that book, hardly daring to breathe. Zhangsan, Pine Tree Valley Brigade, here. Names rang out one by one. Each person called would answer and shuffle toward the right group, stealing glances at their assigned team leader. Those still waiting gripped their bag straps tighter with every name that passed. Su Qingru tugged her sister's sleeve and whispered, "Why haven't they called us yet? I hope we end up with Li Qing." Then it came. Li Qing, Revival Brigade, here. Li Qing answered, then glanced at us. Su Jingshu, Revival Brigade. Su Qingru, Revival Brigade, here, here. Qingru quietly pumped her fist in relief. And finally, Zhou Muyun, Revival Brigade, here, I said. All 4 of us exchanged a look. Same brigade. Some coincidence. After all 30 names were read, Wong handed us off to the brigade leaders. Take your people home. We didn't prepare meals here. Each brigade handles that on your own. Get moving before it's too dark to see the road. Some of the young people looked surprised. No welcome dinner. But out here in the middle of nowhere, there was no way to feed 30 newcomers. Nobody complained. Our team leader was a stocky, dark-skinned man named Lu. He stepped forward and called out in a rough voice, "Revival Brigade. Li Qing, Su Jingshu, Su Qingru, Zhou Muyun. Over here." We hurried over. He looked us up and down and flashed a wide grin. "4 of you, perfect. I'm team leader Lu." We followed him down a bumpy dirt road for about 5 minutes until we reached a small clearing where an old yellow ox stood hitched to a cart filled with dry straw. Beside it, a wrinkled old man sat smoking a pipe. "Here's our ride," Lu said, pulling back the straw. "Cart's too small for everyone. 2 can ride, 2 walk. Figure it out." I spoke up before anyone else. "Let the women ride. I'll walk." Li Qing nodded right away. "Yeah, you 2 take the cart. The road's rough. It's easier for us on foot." Jingshu thanked us quietly. Qingru smiled and waved her little bag. "Thanks, Li Qing." "Thanks, Zhou Muyun." I waved it off. With my body the way it was now, walking was nothing. Honestly, that rickety cart with its worn-out wheels probably would have been less comfortable than my own 2 feet. Li Qing fussed over getting the sisters settled, arranging their bags, smoothing out the straw so they'd have a softer seat. Watching him, I was more certain than ever that he and Su Jingshu were together. The way he looked after her wasn't just neighborly courtesy. And the way Qingru called him, Li Qingji, so naturally, the family clearly knew. Lu introduced the old man with the pipe as Old Chun, the brigade's ox cart driver. "If you need to haul grain, buy supplies at the commune, or carry firewood, Old Chun's your man." Old Chun tapped out his pipe against the cart and smiled. "Just holler if you need anything." "Hello, Uncle Chun," Li Qing and I said together. Old Chun flicked the reins, the ox let out a low grunt, and the cart creaked forward along the dirt road. Li Qing and I walked alongside. Lu leaned against the cart railing and started talking. Honestly, walking might be faster than this cart. The road's so rough the ox has to go at its own pace. But the real advantage of the cart is hauling things. Once the heavy snow comes, and up here, snow can bury you to the knees, you can't carry anything back on foot. Everything goes by ox cart. He paused and added, "Snow's late this year. Usually it starts piling up right after the cold dew season. We're nearly at frost descent, and all we've had is a few flurries that didn't stick. But when the snow comes late, it comes hard. You'll want to make sure the youth settlement has enough firewood and grain stored up before it hits." I asked a few more questions as we walked. The Sioux sisters chimed in now and then from the cart. The evening wind was cold, but the awkwardness of being strangers was starting to fade. Step by step, creak by creak, we made our way toward Revival Brigade and whatever was waiting for us there. It was fully dark by the time the ox cart finally stopped at a dirt crossroad. 2.5 hours of bumping along, and we'd arrived. "This is Revival Village," team leader Lu said, jumping down and brushing off the dust. He pointed toward some mud brick buildings near the base of a hill. "The youth settlement is on the west side, separated from the village by the main commune road. Nice and quiet. We grabbed our bags and followed him. In the pale moonlight, I could make out a small square yard with low mud walls, a few stacks of firewood, and 4 mud brick rooms with thatched roofs arranged around the courtyard. Simple, but tidy enough. The mountain wind blew through and gave the place a lonely, cold feel. Lu pushed open the gate and shouted, "Shaolin! Shaolin!" A light flickered on in the east room. A young man in his early 20s stumbled out, rubbing his eyes. Then a girl with braids came out of the west room, carrying a dim oil lamp. These were Lin Hao and Li Wenting, youth who'd arrived 2 years before us. Lu told them we were the new arrivals and asked them to show us the ropes. Lu gave us one last instruction: get some rest. Tomorrow morning Lin Hao will take you to collect your grain rations, and disappeared into the night. Li Wenting led the Su sisters to the women's room on the west side. Lin Hao took Li Qing and me to the men's room in the east building. When he pushed open the door, warm air hit my face. A big heated brick bed, a Kong, ran along the wall, radiating heat. The settlement was built 2 years ago, Lin Hao explained. Each Kong can fit 7 or 8 people. There's an empty room next door, but heating 2 Kangs wastes too much firewood. We chop all our own wood, so we try to save where we can. You two okay squeezing in here tonight? Li Qing nodded. No problem. 5 other male youth were already on the Kong, half awake from the noise. Lin Hao introduced us briefly. They nodded and rolled over to keep sleeping. Life out here was exhausting. Nobody had energy for small talk. Li Qing stood there frowning at the rough bedding and the worn-out bags piled in the corner. I didn't waste time thinking about it. I walked straight to the far edge of the Kong, the quietest spot, nobody next to me, threw down my thin mattress and pillow, and lay down. No point being fussy. This was how things were. Better to get a solid night's sleep and deal with everything else in the morning. Within minutes, I drifted off to the sound of soft snoring. The next morning, Lin Hao gathered the 4 of us and led us down the dewy dirt path to the brigade office, a mud brick building slightly neater than our settlement. Inside sat team leader Lu, whose full name turned out to be Lu DeBayo, and the brigade accountant, a man named Chun, hunched over a thick ledger with an abacus in front of him. Lu got straight to business. No time for pleasantries. The villagers are heading to work soon, and you'll need to catch up. He led us to a low brick storehouse behind the office. The door opened to the dry, earthy smell of grain. Burlap sacks lined the walls, and iron scale weights sat on the floor. New youth get subsidized rations for the first 3 months, Lu said, scooping cornmeal into our cloth bags. After that, you eat what you earn through work points. Monthly ration is 20 jin of cornmeal and 10 jin of sweet potatoes. When it's gone, no extra. If you have leftovers, save them yourself. The brigade doesn't get involved. Accountant Chin weighed out sweet potatoes for each of us and recorded everything. Qingru whispered to her sister, "If we're careful, it should be enough." Li Qing hefted his bag and said nothing. I took mine without a word. These rations might be barely enough for the others, but I had a mountain of food in my storage space. Still, I had to play along. We signed the ledger and pressed our thumbprints. Chin reminded us that the cloth bags belonged to the brigade. Wash them, keep them safe, and bring them back next month. Lose or tear one, and you pay for it. Lu glanced at the sky. Full daylight now, and I could hear villagers calling to each other in the distance, heading to work. All right, you're done here. Since it's your first day and you don't know the area, take today off. Look around the village, get your settlement in order. But tomorrow morning, you work. Don't be late. On the walk back, Lin Hao warned us. They ring a bell for work call. If you're late, they dock your points. You haven't earned any yet, so you really can't afford to lose them. Back at the youth settlement, I dropped off my cornmeal and sweet potatoes by my spot on the Kong, then turned right around and walked back to the brigade office. I'd already made up my mind. I wasn't going to live crammed together with a bunch of people. I needed my own place. When I walked in, team leader Lu and accountant Chun were cleaning up from the morning's grain distribution. Lu's eyebrows pinched together the second he saw me. I could tell what he was thinking. Here comes the city kid with complaints. Back already, he said, knocking his pipe against the table. Something wrong with the rations? Or the settlement? Neither, I said straight out. I want to know if there are any empty houses in the village I could rent. I'd like to live on my own. That caught him off guard. The annoyance disappeared from his face, replaced by surprise. Rent a house? You sure? The settlement's got heated Kangs, and people to look out for each other. Why would you want to be alone? I've always liked quiet, I said. Too many people at the settlement. Can't sleep at night. That was reason enough for him. He grabbed his straw hat and said, "All right, there is one place. Nobody's using it. Not far from the settlement. Let's go take a look." The three of us walked to the southwest corner of the village, close to the hills behind it. Away from the noise, exactly what I wanted. The yard was better than I expected. Packed earth floor, solid mud brick walls, a simple stone cooking stove against one wall. The main building had 3 connected rooms with wooden window frames. Old, but undamaged. Inside was mostly empty, just a few beat-up tables and stools, but clean. No junk. 3 rooms, Lou said, pushing open the door. Space to sleep, space to store things, and a stove for cooking. You just need to set it up yourself? I'll take it, I said. How much? He rubbed his chin, thinking. 1 yuan a month. That work? Done. He blinked, clearly not expecting me to agree so fast. Then a big grin spread across his face. 1 yuan a month meant 12 yuan a year, real income for the production team. Accountant Chin smiled too and said he'd draw up a rental agreement for me to sign. We went back to the office. Lou wrote out the contract on thick brown paper, location, 1 yuan per month, 12 yuan per year, and stamped it with the brigade's red seal. I signed my name, pressed my thumbprint, and counted out 12 yuan in cash. Lou counted the money twice, grinning ear to ear. Chun recorded it carefully in the ledger, tore off my copy of the agreement, and handed it over. I headed back to the settlement to grab my things. The yard was quiet. Everyone else had gone to work with the villagers. Only Li Qing and the Su sisters were sitting by the stone mill, sipping sweet potato water from their enamel cups and chatting. They looked up and saw me coming out of the room with my bedroll under one arm, my bag of grain under the other, and my cloth pack in hand. All 3 of them stared. "Where are you going with all that?" Li Qing asked, completely confused. Qingru blinked. "Are you leaving the settlement?" Jingshu just stood there quietly, waiting for an answer. I shifted the bedroll on my shoulder. I like my peace and quiet. I rented an empty place in the village. Moving there now, having my own yard meant everything. No more sneaking around to use my storage space, no more hiding my training. Behind those walls, I could do whatever I needed without worrying about anyone watching. I said a quick goodbye to Li Qing and the sisters, grabbed my things, and headed out. On my way past the settlement's junk pile, I picked up an old broom leaning against the wall, perfect for cleaning up my new place. The little yard was dusty, but nothing serious. I swept every room top to bottom, cleared the cobwebs and grass scraps from the corners, and even cleaned the dirt courtyard until the whole place looked fresh. I spread my bedding on the Kong, straightened everything up, and stood back to look around. Simple, yes, but quiet and private. All I needed now were some basic household things: pots, bowls, basins, water jugs, and I'd be set. I returned the broom to the settlement and headed straight back to the brigade office. Team leader Lou was sitting at his desk smoking when I walked in. I could see the worry flash across his face. He probably thought I was coming to cancel the rental and ask for my money back. I didn't let him stew. I pulled out a pack of Dakiaman cigarettes, a good brand, hard to find, drew one out, struck a match, and lit it for him. Then I lit one for myself. He took a long drag, and his eyes went wide. "Dakiaman? Now that's a fine smoke. You city kids really do know how to live. I only buy a pack now and then as a treat," I said casually. And while it was just the 2 of us, I slipped the whole pack into his shirt pocket. His attitude changed instantly. He leaned back in his chair with a big grin. "All right, Xiaozhou, what do you need? If Ludabeo can help, consider it done," I told him straight. My new place was empty and I needed the basics to get by. Bowls, basins, a ladle, and a couple of large water crocks. Everything except a cooking pot. I knew iron pots were too precious for anyone in the village to spare. Lou relaxed completely. "That's it. Easy. I've got spare bowls at my house, and I can round up basins from a few neighbors. Water crocks I can find too. The only thing I can't get you is a pot. You'll have to go to the supply store in town for that." I pulled out 10 yuan and handed it over. "Will this cover it?" He thumbed through the bills, did some quick math in his head, and stuffed the money away with a smile that could have split his face. "In 2. More than enough. I'll have everything delivered to your yard this afternoon." Then he added, "Tell you what, I won't assign you to work tomorrow either. Take the day to go to town and buy whatever else you need." Nobody else gets this kind of special treatment, mind you. Just you. Thank you, team leader. I won't forget this. He was happy. I'd rented a house, bought supplies, and put real money into the village in his pocket. A little generosity went a long way with a man like Lou. After that, I headed to the hills behind my yard. My place sat right at the edge of the village, tucked against the mountain, private, with easy access to the forest without anyone watching. That was exactly why I'd picked it. The most urgent problem was firewood. Nights in Heilongjiang were brutal, and without a hot Kong, the cold would seep right through the mud walls. Since I'd moved out of the settlement, I wasn't going to take from their shared woodpile. I'd get my own. The hillside was thick with pine and birch trees, the ground carpeted with fallen branches and dead leaves. I moved fast, picking up dry birch branches that would burn clean and hot. In about an hour, I'd collected a huge pile. Most of it went into my storage space where no one could see, and I carried 2 big bundles on my shoulders. For show. While I gathered wood, I quietly studied the terrain, where the trees grew thickest, which paths were hidden, where I might hunt for wild game later without being spotted. This mountain was going to be very useful. Back at the yard, I stacked the firewood neatly along the wall. Looking at that tall pile, I felt settled for the first time. Warm Kong tonight, fire for cooking, and a private place that was all my own. Things were coming together. That afternoon, the sound of ox hooves and cart wheels came up the dirt road. Team leader Lu arrived personally with accountant Chun and old Chun, bringing everything I'd asked for: 2 big water crocks, basins, a ladle, and rough ceramic bowls, all loaded on the ox cart. I greeted them with a smile and handed out cigarettes. We unloaded everything together and set it all up neatly inside the yard. Before leaving, Lou reminded me seriously, "You've got most of what you need now, but you're still missing a cooking pot and some odds and ends. Snow can hit any day out here, and once the roads are blocked, you won't be getting to town. Go tomorrow and get everything sorted." I promised I would. Once they left and the yard was quiet again, I decided not to wait until tomorrow. I'd head to town right now. With my body and my cicada-chasing footwork, I could get there fast. On my way out, I passed the youth settlement and ran into Li Qing and the Su sisters sitting in the sun. Li Qing asked where I was going. "Just wandering around nearby," I said casually. Qingru opened her mouth to ask more, but Jingshu gently pulled her back. I waved and kept walking. The moment I was out of the village and alone on the empty road, I stopped holding back. I pushed off hard and launched into my cicada-chasing footwork at full speed. My body cut through the air like wind over grass, almost leaving an afterimage on the bumpy dirt road. The system chimed steadily in my head the whole way. Ding. 8-step cicada chasing experience 1. Ding. 8-step cicada chasing experience 1. Even on the rough terrain, it only took me 30 minutes to reach Pine Tree Valley Commune's town center. The town was livelier than the village, people coming and going with burlap sacks and bamboo baskets. The most prominent building was the Supply Cooperative, a brick-and-mortar shop with a wooden sign over the door and red slogans painted on the walls. "Develop the economy, guarantee supply." I walked in. The smell hit me immediately: kerosene, soap, grain, and cloth all mixed together. Long wooden counters, shelves stacked floor to ceiling. The daily goods section had everything: Lighthouse brand soap, thermos bottles, enamel basins, kerosene lamps, iron pots, hose, sickles, nylon rope, nails, flashlights, batteries. Everything a person needed to get by. But my heart sank as I looked around. I had no ration tickets. In this era, money alone bought you nothing. You needed tickets for a pot, tickets for soap, tickets for a lamp. Without them, I couldn't buy a single thing. I shook my head and walked back out. The only option was to try the black market after dark. My stomach was growling, so I ducked into the state-run restaurant next door. It was a plain little place, wooden tables and chairs, slogans on the walls. I spent 1 dime and 2 liang of grain coupons on a bowl of plain noodle soup. Basic stuff, just noodles with a few scallion flakes, but it filled the hole. After eating, I drifted toward the southeast edge of town. The area was thick with trees and wild grass, tucked out of sight. If this town had a black market, it would be hidden somewhere in these woods. I found a sheltered spot with a good view and waited for darkness. When night finally fell, the town's scattered lights dimmed, and the forest turned pitch black. Before long, shadowy figures began slipping through the trees, heads down, collars up. nobody wanting to be recognized. They crept one by one into the woods. I pulled a strip of rough cloth from inside my jacket and wrapped it around my face, leaving only my eyes showing. Then I followed the others into the trees. At the entrance, a stocky man stepped out from behind a tree trunk. "Stop. Buying or selling?" "Buying," I said flatly. "1 dime. Same price as Beijing." I handed over the coin without a word. He pocketed it and jerked his chin toward the forest. "Go in. Don't talk too much, don't stare. You know the rules." I nodded and stepped into the darkness. The black market was hidden deep in the woods, lit only by a few pine torches. People moved like shadows, whispering their deals, nobody wanting to draw attention. I walked through the whole place with my face covered, but there wasn't much worth buying, mostly coarse grain, cornmeal, dried sweet potatoes, some old clothes and eggs. Nothing I actually needed. No iron pot, no thermos, no kerosene lamp. On my way out, I stopped by the guard at the entrance, the stocky man who'd let me in. He recognized me right away. "Back so soon? Didn't find what you wanted?" "No." "Do you have any iron pots?" He scratched his chin. "Actually, yeah. 1 big one, the kind used for banquet cooking." "Interested?" "Yes, it's not here." "Follow me." He led me through a maze of dark alleys to a small, run-down yard on the edge of town. He knocked on the door 3 times in a pattern. A voice inside asked who it was. The guard, his name turned out to be Urgu, announced himself and said he had a buyer. Inside, a middle-aged man sat in a wooden chair under a dim kerosene lamp. He had calm, steady eyes and carried himself like someone in charge. They called him Fifth Master Chun. He looked me over and nodded. "What do you need, brother?" "An iron pot, a thermos, a kerosene lamp, and a watch." His eyebrows lifted. He hadn't expected such a big order. He quoted me the price straight. 30 yuan for the pot, thermos, and lamp together. 100 for a used mechanical watch that kept good time. 130 total. "Deal." I pulled out the money and handed it over without haggling. He grinned. I like a man who doesn't waste time. He took me to the back room and pulled everything out. A heavy iron pot from under the bed, a new bamboo shell thermos, a working kerosene lamp, and the watch from his coat pocket. I checked the time on the watch, set the hands, and thanked him. "If you need anything else," he said at the door, "find Urgu in the East Woods. Our location changes, but he always knows where I am." Once I was clear of town and alone on the road, I sent the pot, thermos, and lamp into my storage space, strapped the watch on my wrist, and broke into a full sprint. Cicada-chasing footwork at maximum speed, the wind roaring past my ears, the system chiming away. Ding. 8-step cicada-chasing experience 1. Ding. 8-step cicada-chasing experience 1. I got back to Revival Village around 10 at night. Everything was dark and quiet. I slipped into my yard, lit the kerosene lamp, and stoked a fire in the Kong with the wood I'd gathered earlier. Within minutes, the room was warm and the cold was gone. I set out a few common medical books on the small table by the Kong, the kind anyone could openly read, and thought about tomorrow. Lou had given me the day off from work. I planned to use it exploring deep into the mountains behind the village. I blew out the lamp and fell asleep on the warm Kong. The next morning I was up before dawn. The air outside was bitter cold, frost clinging to the walls and the woodpile. I washed my face with cold water, lit a fire under my new iron pot, and cooked breakfast, 2 flatbreads, and a bowl of hot porridge from the good grain in my storage space. The pot was perfect, thick, wide, solid. Good for cooking, boiling water, or stewing meat down the road. After cleaning up, I locked the gate and headed straight into the mountains behind the village. The terrain was nothing like the gentle northern slopes where the villagers usually went to chop wood and pick wild vegetables. This side was dense and wild. Pine, birch, and oak packed so tight the canopy blocked the sky, the ground thick with dead leaves that muffled every step. No paths, no footprints, no sign anyone ever came here. I pushed deeper, weaving through gaps in the trees, climbing over tangled roots and brush. After 5 or 6 li, I scrambled over a steep hill. Even with my physical stat at 18 and my visible force realm at 99%, the rough terrain left me slightly winded, a thin layer of sweat on my back. For the first time in a while, I actually felt tired. While the others reported to the logging site on North Mountain that morning, I was already deep in the wild hills behind the village. I later heard how things went for them. Team leader Lu brought Li Qing and the Su sisters to the logging camp, where the villagers were already hard at work with axes and saws. Li Qing got assigned to the logging crew under a big, strong local named Chun Dazhuang, a skilled lumberjack who'd teach him how to fell trees safely. The sisters got lighter duty in the work shed, helping with cooking and boiling water, under Li Wenting's supervision. When Lin Hao mentioned I hadn't shown up, Lu waved it off and told everyone he'd personally given me the day off to get my place set up. Meanwhile, I was pushing through untouched forest where no villager ever went. Dense pine, birch, and oak pressed in from every side, the ground thick with dead leaves that swallowed my footsteps. Then I spotted something, a pile of fresh animal droppings on the ground, still damp. Recent. Very recent. I dropped my pace and started tracking, moving carefully through the brush. The system noticed immediately. Ding. Tracking skill experience 1. Ding. Tracking skill experience 1. Ding. Tracking skill experience 1. I followed the trail over a small ridge and through a wall of dense shrubs. About half an hour later, the forest opened up into a hidden mountain hollow that took my breath away. A clear spring trickled down the rock face and pooled into a small, crystal-clear pond at the bottom. The air was moist and warm compared to the surrounding forest, with lush green growth all around. It was a natural watering hole, exactly the kind of place animals would gather. I ducked behind a large boulder and watched. The hollow was alive with wildlife. Several wild boars with glossy coats were rooting through the mud near the water's edge. A few roe deer stood timidly by the spring, drinking in cautious sips. Flocks of grouse with patterned tail feathers hopped through the grass, pecking at insects and chattering away. More game than I'd imagined possible in one spot. Looking at those fat boars and plump deer, my fingers itched. But I'd come out in a hurry with no weapons, no hunting knife, no bow, nothing. All the martial arts skill in the world wouldn't help me take down a wild boar barehanded. Not efficiently, anyway. I held myself back, memorized every detail of the hollow, the spring, the approaches, the surrounding terrain, and made a plan. Next time, I'd come prepared. This place was a gold mine, and I intended to make full use of it. I memorized the location of that hidden hollow full of game and quietly retraced my steps out of the deep mountains. No weapons meant no hunting today, but finding that spot was prize enough. On the way back, I gathered a huge bundle of dry pine and birch branches, easy pickings with my strength, and hauled them home to stack against the yard wall. That wood pile was growing into a small mountain. Enough fuel for a long time. I cooked a simple meal on my stone stove, then spent the rest of the afternoon training in the courtyard. I started with Tai Chi, smooth, flowing, every movement connected like water, then switched to the hard, explosive power of Bajiquan, punching until the wind cracked with each strike. The system chimed away the entire time. When I finally stopped at nightfall and checked my stats, I felt a rush of excitement. My visible force realm had hit 100%, completely full. My physical stat was at 19. One more push, and I'd break through into a whole new level. Everything was right on the edge. I cooked dinner, boiled a big pot of hot water to wash off the sweat, and lay down on the warm calm. Tomorrow was my first real day of work. I closed my eyes and fell asleep fast. Before dawn the next morning, I was up and out the door. As I passed the youth settlement, the village bell was clanging from the old tree, the work signal. Sleepy-eyed youth stumbled out with their tools while villagers headed toward North Mountain with axes over their shoulders. Lin Hao spotted me and waved. Zhou Muyun, over here. You missed yesterday, so you'll need team leader Lu to assign you a job. I nodded and fell in with the group heading to the logging site. North Mountain was covered in tall, straight pines. The experienced workers scattered immediately, axes swinging, saws biting into wood, chips flying, shouts echoing across the hillside. Lu showed up shortly and looked me over. Got everything you needed in town yesterday, all set. He studied me for a moment. How old are you, anyway? You look like the youngest in this batch. 16. His eyes went wide. 16? The youngest we've ever had before was 18. You're still practically a kid. Lin Hao was just as surprised, muttering that I looked bigger than my age. Lu scratched his chin. Normally I'd put someone your age on light duty, boiling water, tidying the work shed. But you're built solid. Giving you women's work wouldn't sit right with the villagers, and it wouldn't be good for you either. Team leader, I didn't come all the way out here to take it easy, I said firmly. Put me on the logging crew. I can handle it. He slapped his thigh. That's the spirit. But fair warning, logging is brutal work. Don't say I didn't tell you. I'll be fine. He called over Chun Dazhuang, the same burly local who'd been training Li Qing. Dazhuang looked at me and then back at Lu with a pained expression. Another one, boss? I just started getting Li Qing up to speed. Lu shot him a look. Got a problem with that? No. No problem. Dazhuang grinned quickly. I'll teach him good. He took me to the tool shed to grab an axe, a curved saw, and a safety rope, then led me to a tall pine and started explaining the basics. Check which way the tree leans. Chop a triangular notch on the fall side. Saw from the opposite side. Never swing wild. Safety first. Li Qing was nearby, working on his own tree, or trying to. Yesterday he'd been full of excitement, eager to try everything. Today he looked drained. His arms moved slowly, his swings were weak, and all that first day enthusiasm had been beaten out of him by a single afternoon of real labor. He'd learned the hard way that logging was no adventure. It was backbreaking work. By mid-morning, I'd already learned every step of the logging process, reading the lean of a tree, chopping the notch, sawing from the opposite side, shouting the warning, and stripping the branches clean. With my physical stats, swinging an axe felt like lifting a chopstick. But I knew better than to show off on my first day. I kept my movements slow and deliberate, pretending I was still figuring things out, blending in with everyone else. Chen Dazhuang worked through the whole demonstration patiently, walking me through each step at a big pine tree. First rule, check the fall direction. This tree leans east, so we drop it east onto the clearing. Never toward people, never into dense trees. Get this wrong, and somebody dies. He swung his axe 3 times, carving a deep triangular notch into the trunk. Notch has to be exactly 1/3 deep. Too deep, and the tree falls early. Too shallow, and the saw won't pull it over. Li Qing, rubbing his aching arms nearby, groaned. That axe is so heavy. I can barely swing it 10 times before I'm done. Dazhuang laughed. Everyone's like that at first. Give it a few days. He moved to the opposite side with the curved saw and pulled it back and forth, smooth and steady, sawdust raining down. When only a thin layer of wood remained, he stepped back and bellowed. Timber. The tree crashed down exactly where he'd aimed. A perfect fall onto the open ground, shaking loose a cloud of dead leaves. Then he showed us how to strip the branches, working from tip to trunk, saving everything for firewood. The whole sequence was clean and efficient. I watched it all and said nothing. For me, none of this was hard. I hadn't even broken a sweat. But Dazhuang was dripping, and Li Qing looked half dead. Face pale, arms limp, cotton jacket soaked through with sweat. Logging in heavy winter clothes drained people fast. I just kept quiet and played the eager student. At noon, the work bell rang and everyone dropped their tools, flooding toward the cook shed. Smoke curled from the chimney, and the smell of food drifted across the site. Su Jingshu, Su Qingru, and Li Wenting were busy ladling out meals. I waited in line and quietly pulled an aluminum lunchbox out of my storage space when nobody was looking. Good thing I'd stashed one earlier, or I'd have had nothing to eat from. Lunch was 4 cornflour buns, dense and yellow, and a big scoop of stewed vegetables, cabbage, potatoes, radish, frozen tofu, dried beans, and wide noodles all simmered, together with pork fat and a few scraps of belly pork floating in the oily broth. Heavy on salt, heavy on grease, built to fill you up and keep you warm. By this era's standards, it was a feast. I carried my food to a quiet spot under a big pine tree, snapped off 2 smooth twigs for chopsticks, and ate slowly. The buns were rough, but the stew was rich and savory. Dazhuang plopped down next to me with his chipped bowl. So Xiaozhou, how's our food? Can you handle it? It's good, I said. Better than you'd think, he grinned. Can't be as fancy as what you ate in Beijing, right? I heard the restaurants there have everything. Honestly, city people eat by ration tickets too, I said. Meat at every meal? Not a chance. Huh? Then we've got it better out here, he puffed up proudly. During logging season, we get meat in the stew every single day. Beat that. I asked how long the logging season lasted. From after the autumn harvest all the way to spring planting, the whole winter. Snow makes it easier to haul logs by ox cart. Strange thing is, the big snow still hasn't come this year. And outside of winter, spring is planting, summer is tending crops, autumn is harvest. Those months are lighter work, but fewer work points and less pay. That's why everyone pushes hard during logging. It's where the real earnings are. He looked at me with genuine respect. You know, Xiaozhou, you're sharp. Strong too. You picked up the whole process in one morning. Give it a few more days, and you'll be working solo. Want to team up with me? Partners earn more work points together than working alone. Sure, I said without hesitation. I'm in. He slapped his thigh, beaming. Great. You and me, Xiaozhou, will be the top-earning pair in the whole brigade. The lunch break was over almost before it started. The work bell clanged again, and everyone groaned, dragging themselves back to the logging area with aching backs and stiff arms. Dazhuang led Li Qing and me to a pine tree about 30 centimeters across. This afternoon, you two take this one together. Mayun, you're the lead. You've got the strength and you learn fast. Li Qing, you assist with the saw. I'll stand right here and watch. Anything goes wrong, I'll stop you. Li Qing winced and rubbed his arm. My whole body's still jelly from this morning. I'm worried I'll slow Mayun down. Don't sweat it, Dazhuang said. Everybody's like that at first. These 10 days aren't about speed or output. Just get the feel for it. He explained the work point system too. During our 10-day training period, we'd earn 5 points a day, third-tier labor, the lowest rate. After that, points would depend on how many trees we felled. Experienced workers pulled 7 to 9 points daily, and the best could break 10. I circled the tree, picked the fall direction, east, toward the clearing, and got to work. I swung the axe in controlled, precise strokes, each one landing exactly where the last one did. Wood chips sprayed, and a clean triangular notch took shape in no time. Li Qing moved to the far side with the saw. He tried his best, but after the punishing morning, his arms were shaking. The saw wobbled. I quietly steadied the trunk for him without making a fuss, taking pressure off his side. Dazhuang coached us from the sideline. Mayun, half an inch deeper on that notch. Perfect. Li Qing, don't muscle it. Pull smooth and level. Li Qing was drenched in sweat, grimacing with every pull. I barely felt a thing. At my level, this work was effortless, but I kept my face calm and my pace measured. No reason to stand out. After about an hour, the trunk was down to a thin layer of wood. I stepped back and shouted, "Timber!" The pine crashed down exactly where I'd aimed, thumping into the clearing with a satisfying boom. Beautiful, Dazhuang clapped. Direction was dead on, not a single step wrong. Better than I expected from two beginners. We spent the rest of the afternoon stripping branches, me chopping quick and clean from tip to trunk, Li Qing gathering the cut limbs into a pile behind me. One tree. That was our whole afternoon's work, and Dazhuang said it was a great result for first-timers. Li Qing collapsed onto a stump, gasping. I just brushed the wood chips off my hands like nothing had happened. When the quitting bell finally rang at sunset, everyone dragged themselves home. The other youth had dinner waiting at the settlement. I walked back to my yard alone. First thing I did was stuff dry kindling into the Kong and get it burning. Nights out here were too cold to sleep on a cold bed. Then I fired up the stone stove, steamed some buns and sweet potatoes, ate quickly, and cleaned up. Because I had somewhere to be tonight. I locked the gate and headed out of the village. The moment I was alone on the open road, I launched into full cicada-chasing speed, tearing through the darkness toward Pine Tree Valley Town. The system chimed all the way, ding. 8-step cicada chasing experience 1. Ding. 8-step cicada chasing experience 1. 30 minutes, and I was there. I went straight to the eastern woods where the black market hid. It had only been a day. Fifth Master Chen's people wouldn't have moved yet. Still, I figured it was smartest to find Ergu at the entrance and have him take me in. I spotted him leaning against a tree, smoking. I pulled the cloth over my face and called out quietly, "Brother Ergu." He recognized me right away and grinned, stubbing out his cigarette. "Hey, it's you. Back already? Need something else?" "Yeah. Was hoping to see Fifth Master again." "No problem at all. He's in tonight. Follow me." He turned and led me into the pitch-black woods, weaving through the trees toward Chun Wu's hidden yard. I needed a proper weapon. That mountain hollow full of wild game was waiting for me, and this time I wasn't going back empty-handed. The little yard outside town was dark and quiet, guarded as always. Ergu walked me in without trouble. The lookout recognized us and waved us through. Fifth Master Chen was sitting at his Kong table drinking tea. His face lit up when he saw me. "Brother Zhou Yun, only been a day and you're back already. Sorry to bother you again, Fifth Master." "Bother?" You can come every day, and I'll keep the door wide open. He called for tea and sent Urga back to his post. We sat down. He poured me a bowl of something fragrant. I took a sip and told him honestly, I don't know much about tea, but this tastes like the good stuff. He laughed. Straight shooter. I like that. So what do you need this time? I didn't dance around it. Weapons. I'm wondering if you can get your hands on some. His smile deepened. He leaned in and lowered his voice. Brother, you came to exactly the right person. In this whole area, when it comes to things that aren't supposed to be sold, I'm the only one with the connections. What kind are you after? I held up my fingers in the shape of the number 8. He understood immediately. Long or short, one of each. He sucked in a breath and nodded slowly. That's not small stuff. It won't be cheap. Name your price. He held up 3 fingers, then 2 more. 300 for the long one, 200 for the short one. 200 rounds each. You won't find a better deal anywhere in Pine Tree Valley. I lit a cigarette and took a slow drag, letting the silence sit. Chun Wu didn't rush me. He just waited, watching me with a look that said he knew I wasn't an ordinary young man. I finished the cigarette, crushed it out, and said, I'll take both. Then I added, do you have anything else? Cold weapons, blades, swords. Something shifted in his eyes. In this day and age, plenty of people dealt in firearms, but someone asking for edged weapons on top of that? That was a different breed entirely. He studied me for a moment, then smiled carefully. Nobody's interested in that kind of thing anymore. But as it happens, I do have one piece. A real piece. Question is whether you can afford it. Let me see it first. Huh. I like your nerve. Follow me. He led me across the yard to a separate building in the northwest corner. 5 or 6 tough-looking men stood guard at the door, all clearly trained fighters. They snapped to attention when Chun Wu approached. He unlocked the door and pulled the light cord. The room was his secret warehouse, stacked with grain, cloth, kerosene, medicine, and tools. Impressive collection. Show me the blade, I said. He went to the very back and carefully lifted a heavy wooden box wrapped in old cloth. He set it on the table, unwrapped it slowly, and opened the lid. Inside, resting on velvet lining, lay a sword. It was beautiful. The scabbard was deep red, fine old rosewood, dense and smooth. The guard, pommel, and fittings were cast bronze with intricate cloud and thunder patterns, the kind of metalwork that spoke of centuries. The handle was long enough for 1 or 2 hands, wrapped tight with cord that gave a perfect, sure grip. I drew it. The ring of steel sang through the room, one clean, high note that hung in the air. The blade was straight, narrow, and proud, with 8 faceted edges along its length instead of the usual 4. Near the tip, it tapered gracefully, reducing weight without sacrificing cutting power. The edge gleamed with a subtle, flowing pattern, restrained but unmistakably lethal. The whole weapon radiated dignity, power, and age. I gave it a single light swing, and the air itself whispered. So, Chun Wu asked quietly, does it meet your standards? It's a fine sword, I said without taking my eyes off the blade. I want it. He let out a rueful laugh. It's not cheap, brother. Name the price. He took a deep breath and told me the story first. The sword was a Ming dynasty reproduction of an ancient Han-style blade, passed down for centuries. Sharp enough to cut iron, fine enough to split a hair. He'd gotten it from a former Qing dynasty noble who'd burned through the family fortune and pawned the sword for food money. The man died a few years later, and the sword stayed with Chun Wu. He had no use for it, couldn't eat it, couldn't show it off, so it had sat in storage ever since. If you truly want it, he said, I won't gouge you. 2,000 yuan. When Chun Wu said 2,000 yuan, I didn't flinch. I just shook my head calmly. Too much, Fifth Master. In times like these, it's not worth that. He rubbed his hands together, half smiling. Brother, I'm not trying to rip you off. It's a centuries-old sword. I've got to make something on the deal. I tapped my finger on the table, thinking. Then I looked him in the eye and made him an offer he wasn't expecting. How about this? The sword, plus both guns and the ammunition. I'll give you 1 big yellow fish for all of it. His eyes went wide. He sat bolt upright. A big yellow fish, a 10-tail gold bar. In an era where paper money was shaky and goods were scarce, a single gold bar was worth far more than a few thousand yuan in cash. I could see his mind racing, recalculating everything he thought he knew about me. After a few frozen seconds, he slapped his thigh and broke into a huge grin. Deal. Brother Zhou, you're generous and I won't be stingy. 1 gold bar, everything's yours. Consider this the start of a real friendship. Come on, let me show you the guns. He led me across the yard toward the northeast corner, explaining in a low voice that he kept firearms separate from the regular goods. If inspectors find grain and cloth, I can talk my way out of it. But guns and ammunition? That's a death sentence. I understood completely. These were the ultimate equalizers, something that could only circulate freely in chaotic times like these. At the cellar entrance, 2 guards stood watch. Chen Wu gave the order, and they disappeared underground, returning moments later carrying 2 long oil paper bundles and 2 tin ammunition boxes. Back in the main room under lamplight, I unwrapped the first package. A Type 38 bolt-action rifle, the famous 3/8 cap. The bluing was flawless, the bolt action silky smooth, the stock carved from a single piece of dense wood. It smelled faintly of gun oil. Brand new condition. It came with 6.5mm rounds, stable, low recoil, perfect for long-range accuracy. The second package held a Browning M1911 pistol. All steel, compact, and angular, with textured wooden grip panels that fit my hand perfectly. A classic military sidearm chambered in .45 ACP, massive stopping power at close range. The trigger, safety, and magazine all moved like they'd never been touched. Also brand new. The 2 tin boxes were neatly packed with ammunition for both weapons, rounds gleaming, primers intact. I tested the bolts, magazines, and safeties on both. Everything was perfect. Good stuff, Fifth Master. No complaints, he beamed. Only the best for you, brother. I wouldn't pull out stock like this for just anyone. I reached inside my padded jacket and produced a single heavy gold bar, gleaming under the lamplight. I set it on the table and slid it across to him. Check it yourself. He picked it up with both hands, feeling the weight. Then he bit it gently, a clear tooth mark and soft, pure gold. His face split into the widest smile I'd seen from him yet. Pure, sweet as honey. Thank you, Brother Zhou. Pleasure doing business, I said. I should get going. He walked me all the way to the gate, repeating how welcome I was to come back anytime, treating me like an old friend. Once I was alone in the darkness, I sent everything into my storage space with a single thought, the sword in its box, both guns, both ammo crates. Gone in an instant. Then I launched into cicada-chasing footwork at full power, streaking across the empty plains like a shadow. Ding. 8-step cicada chasing experience 1. Ding. 8-step cicada chasing experience 1. By the time I slipped through my courtyard gate, the night was dead silent. Not even a dog barking. Just the bitter wind hissing through the treetops. I splashed cold water on my face, ready to collapse onto the Kong and sleep, but then I noticed something. Tiny flakes of snow were drifting past the window, cold and silent. I stepped outside and looked up. The snow was falling fast and thick. This wasn't a light dusting. By morning, the ground would be buried. And when heavy snow hit Heilongjiang, the temperature plunged straight through the walls. I crouched by the stove and shoved in several armfuls of the driest, hardest wood I had. Flames roared up and warmth slowly spread through the Kong and into every corner of the room. Once the whole place was toasty and sealed against the cold, I blew out the lamp, stripped off my outer clothes, and stretched out on the hot Kong. Outside, the wind picked up and the snow fell harder, howling against the walls. Inside, everything was warm and still. I closed my eyes, let my mind go quiet, and fell into deep, heavy sleep. The wind howled all night. When I woke and pushed open the door, the world had turned completely white. Snow buried the yard, the road, the trees, ankle-deep and soft as cotton. Everything was silent. No work bell. I was about to head to the village to find out what was going on when Lin Hao came trudging through the snow toward my yard, breathing clouds of white air. "Snow's too heavy," he said. "Mountain roads blocked. No work today. Just stay home and rest." I thanked him for making the trip. He waved it off, said it was his job as youth team leader, even if it meant an extra walk because I'd moved out of the settlement. Once he was gone, I locked the gate. A free day? Perfect timing. I went inside, shut the doors and windows tight, and pulled the sword's wooden box out of my storage space. I drew the blade. That clear, ringing sound filled the room, and ran through a few moves. The sword felt like it was made for me. I sent it into my storage space for safekeeping. I was about to chop up the empty box for firewood when something caught my eye. The inner walls looked too thick. Something was off about the proportions. I drew the sword again and carefully split the wood along the seam. With a crack, the box fell apart, revealing a hidden compartment built into the lining. Inside lay a thin, thread-bound book, its pages yellowed with age. The cover read in elegant old script, "Fundamental Sword Techniques. 1 strike, 1 kill." I opened it, and my pulse quickened. No wasted words, no flashy forms. 12 killing techniques, each with a diagram and a rhyme. Thrust, cleave, hook, lift, cloud, slash, point, snap, intercept, twist, chop, sweep. Every single move aimed at a vital point. This was real combat swordsmanship, the kind designed for battlefields and life-or-death fights. I couldn't wait. I drew the sword and began practicing right there in the room, matching each movement to the diagrams. The system responded immediately. Ding. Swordsmanship Experience 1. Ding. Swordsmanship Experience 1. Ding. Swordsmanship Experience 1. I lost track of time completely. I forgot lunch. I just kept training, each strike getting sharper, each movement more fluid, until I was breathing hard and sweating through my clothes. When I finally stopped and checked my stats, there were some welcome surprises. My cicada-chasing footwork had broken through to level 4 from all that sprinting back and forth to town. My physical stat had climbed to 20. My new swordsmanship skill was already at level 1 with 67% proficiency. But my visible force realm was still stuck at 100%, full, but not yet broken through to the next stage. I was right at the door of dark force, just couldn't push through yet. I wasn't worried. It would come. Hunger finally caught up with me. The snow outside was too heavy to bother going out to the stove, so I just poured hot water from my thermos into a basin, crumbled a leftover corn bun into it, and ate the mushy result. Tasteless, but it filled the hole. Sitting cross-legged on the warm Kong afterward, flipping through a medical book, I let my mind work on a bigger problem. Training this hard burned through enormous amounts of energy. Corn buns and sweet potatoes weren't going to cut it. I needed real nutrition, meat, good grain, to keep my body fueled. I had plenty of fine food in my storage space from the Beijing black market hall, but I couldn't just eat steak and white rice every day in a place where everyone else was scraping by on coarse grain. People would notice. People would talk. The answer was hunting. That hidden hollow in the mountains was full of wild boar, roe deer, and grouse. If I brought back game from the forest, nobody would question where the meat came from. It was a perfectly natural, honest explanation. I could feed myself properly, support my training, and never raise a single eyebrow. Once the snow eased up enough to walk, I'd head into the mountains. With my new weapons, the ancient sword, and my martial arts at the peak of visible force, that wilderness was about to become my personal pantry. The snow kept falling for 2 solid days before it finally let up. The whole village was buried. Thick white covering everything, roads frozen shut, no chance of logging or even leaving the house. Everyone got an unexpected break. I made the most of it. Behind locked doors, I treated myself to real food from my storage space. Steamed white flour buns, stewed cured meat. The kind of meals I couldn't risk eating when anyone might drop by. The only annoyance was cooking outside on the stone stove while snow kept landing on my shoulders and soaking my clothes. I made a mental note to build a shelter over the cooking area once things thawed out. The good food made a huge difference. My energy was through the roof compared to when I'd been surviving on corn buns and sweet potatoes. I poured every spare minute into training, fists, sword, forms, the courtyard silent except for the sound of my movements and the endless chiming of the system in my head. At night, I read medical texts by lamplight. My medical skill was climbing steadily. Then, on the second night, it happened. I was flowing through Tai Chi in the warm room when something shifted inside me. A current of energy I'd never felt before began moving through my body, threading along paths I could somehow sense, but never had before. It felt like a wall crumbling. Something that had been holding me back simply dissolved. I pulled up my stats instantly. National Martial Arts, Dark Force, 1%. I'd broken through. My physical stat had jumped to 21. Bajiquan and Tai Chi had both hit level 4. Medical skill reached level 2. Swordsmanship was at level 2. Everything had surged forward. I had to test it. I settled into a Tai Chi stance and threw a casual punch. No real effort, just an easy, relaxed movement. There was a dull thump. I stared at the door. A fist-sized hole had been punched clean through the solid wood, the edges smooth and precise. I hadn't even touched it. I'd been standing several feet away. That was dark force. Where visible force trained your muscles and bones for explosive external power, dark force was internal. Hidden energy stored deep inside, released through the body without any outward sign. Contained on the surface, devastating on impact. I'd barely used any strength and punched through a wooden door from a distance. I stood there flexing my fist, feeling the power flowing through me, and couldn't help smiling. That afternoon, the snow finally eased from a blizzard to light flurries. I gave my body a rest, just reading medical books on the warm calm. 2 days of nonstop training deserved a break. I figured the snow would stop by midnight, and tomorrow the village would be back to work. I was right. By dawn, the snow had stopped completely. I opened my door to a blinding white world. Snow up to my shins, every rooftop and tree branch draped in white, the air sharp and clean. Across the village, people were already out with shovels and brooms, clearing paths and laughing. I looked toward the youth settlement, 300 meters away, and realized I could see every face clearly. Their expressions, the way they moved, details I never could have made out before. My senses had sharpened dramatically after the breakthrough. Eyesight, hearing, everything was crisper. My own yard needed clearing, but I didn't own a shovel or even a broom. I walked through the deep snow to the settlement to borrow one. The youth were hard at work when I arrived. Lee Winting spotted me first and called out cheerfully, asking if I'd cleared my yard yet. Not yet, I said. I don't have any tools. Came to borrow a shovel. Lin Hao straightened up from his shoveling. We're almost done here. Take one. It's all yours. Li Qing and the Su sisters hurried over too. We were the only 4 from Beijing. All the other youth had come from different places, so there was a natural bond between us, even though I kept my distance. Qingru offered right away. You shouldn't clear all that snow alone. Want us to come help? Jingshu nodded. It's so deep. With a few of us, it'll go fast, Li Qing chimed in. I'll come too. We're basically done here anyway. I shook my head. Thanks, but I'll handle it myself. You've all been working all morning. Get some rest. They tried to insist, but I held firm. Lin Hao and Li Winning said a polite word or two, but didn't push. We weren't close enough for that. I grabbed the shovel and headed back through the snow toward my yard alone. I grabbed the borrowed shovel and headed back to my yard. With my body at 21 physical points and dark force flowing through me, clearing snow was barely exercise. I started inside the courtyard. Each scoop heavy and full, each toss precise, piling the snow neatly against the walls. The whole yard was clean in no time. The road outside was harder. The snow had been packed down by footsteps and frozen solid. I angled the shovel underneath, let just a touch of dark force flow through my arms, and the hardened slabs cracked loose like nothing. I cleared a wide, clean path from my gate all the way to the main road. Didn't break a sweat, didn't even breathe hard. After lunch, I carried the shovel back to the youth settlement. Lin Hao met me at the door with news. Team leader Lu wanted all the youth at North Mountain that afternoon to clear snow from the logging site and prepare for work to restart. Come inside and warm up while we wait, Lin Hao said. I didn't need warming up. The cold couldn't touch me anymore. But standing outside in a blizzard for no reason would look strange. So I followed him in. The common room was small and crowded. About 20 youth squeezed around 4 old wooden tables eating lunch. The food was plain, corn porridge, yellow buns, and a big pot of boiled cabbage with almost no oil. The smell was thin and watery. Li Qing spotted me and waved. Muyan, have you eaten? Come sit. Have some porridge and a bun. Before I could answer, a sharp voice cut across the room. A skinny, sour-faced guy named Chun Hong slammed down his chopsticks and sneered. How generous. The rest of us can barely fill our own stomachs, and he's giving food away to outsiders. Li Qing's face darkened instantly. What's your problem, Chun Hong? It's my own ration. I'm not taking from yours. Chun Hong leaned back in his chair, smirking. Sure. Just don't come crying to the group when you run out and want to mooch off the rest of us. A few guys sitting with him nodded along, backing him up. This was clearly his little gang. I looked at Chun Hong. I didn't raise my voice. I just said, did I say I was going to eat your food? My gaze settled on him. Calm, steady, with the kind of weight that comes naturally after breaking through to dark force. I wasn't trying to intimidate him. I was just looking at him. He flinched. His smirk froze. His eyes darted away from mine, and he hunched his shoulders, suddenly very interested in his porridge bowl. "Oomph. Better not," he muttered, but his voice had shrunk to half its earlier volume. He didn't look up again. Li Wenning stepped in to smooth things over. "Come on, everyone. We're all comrades here. No point fighting over something small." Lin Hao backed her up. "She's right. Finish eating and save your energy. We've got heavy work this afternoon." The room quieted down, though the air stayed awkward. After the meal, Li Qing pulled me outside under the eaves where nobody could hear us. He looked embarrassed. "Sorry about that. Didn't mean to drag you into our mess." I leaned against the wall. "What's the deal with Qinhong?" Li Qing sighed. "The four of us from Beijing, me, Jingshu, Qingru, and you. We're new, so our rations are smaller than what the older youth earn through work points. But meals here are shared from a common pot. Qinhong's crowd thinks we eat too much and work too little. On top of that, we're from the capital and our families are a bit better off. They're jealous. They take every chance to pick on us." I understood immediately. Jealousy and pettiness, nothing new. Li Qing grabbed my arm, his face serious. "Watch out for Qinhong. You're from Beijing too, and you live alone, which probably looks comfortable to him. He's the type to hold grudges and gang up on people. If anything happens, don't try to handle it alone. The four of us need to stick together out here." I smiled faintly. "Don't worry about me. Honestly, I'd be happy if he came looking for trouble." The work bell rang, and everyone headed to North Mountain with shovels and brooms. I walked at the back with Li Qing and the Su sisters, our boots crunching through the soft snow. Jingshu pulled her coat tighter against the wind, her cheeks pink from the cold. "How's cooking for yourself going, Mian? Isn't it a hassle living alone?" "It's great," I said, kicking a clump of snow. "Once I got the basics set up, it's way better than the settlement. More freedom." Qingru bounced over, curious as always. "But why did you move out? At least at the settlement you've got company." "That's exactly the problem," I said. "On my own, there's no drama to deal with. Peace and quiet." Li Qing slapped his thigh. "You saw it coming before any of us." "Smart move." I glanced at him. "You could move out too. There are probably more empty houses in the village." He scratched his head and looked at the sisters. "Can't. I already handed my rations over to the settlement's common pot for this month. And if I left, Jingshu and Qingru would be stuck dealing with Qinhong's gang by themselves. I need to be there." I let my eyes drift between him and Jingshu, smiling. "If you're going to move, might as well all move out together. You two aren't exactly subtle about your relationship, you know." Both their faces turned bright red in an instant. Li Qing stammered. Jingshu ducked her head, gripping her coat hem, ears glowing pink. Qingru burst out laughing and piled on gleefully. "Miyun, let me tell you, Li Qing and my sister are childhood sweethearts. They grew up next door to each other. If it wasn't for this whole countryside thing, they'd probably be getting engaged this year." "Qingru, shut up." Jingshu swatted her sister's arm, face red as an apple. I smiled. "You didn't need to tell me. It's pretty obvious." Li Qing looked at Jingshu with genuine warmth and admitted it openly. "It's true. We've been close since we were kids." I remembered something from the train and asked, "Didn't you say your dad's a workshop supervisor at the steel plant? He couldn't have gotten you a work assignment to stay in the city." Qingru jumped in before anyone else could answer. "Oh, he totally could have. Li Qing didn't have to come at all. He gave up his spot because of my sister. Followed us here so we wouldn't be alone." I raised my eyebrows. "That's quite the love story." Li Qing patted my shoulder with a knowing look. "You're still young, Miyun. When you meet someone you really care about, you'll understand." I clicked my tongue dismissively. Being the youngest in the group meant everyone treated me like a little brother, especially Qingru, who was always hovering around, chatting, teasing, never running out of energy. We reached the logging site. The whole area was buried in white. Team leader Lu was already waiting with his shovel, and the moment everyone arrived, he shouted for us to spread out and start clearing. I grabbed my shovel. Before I could take 2 steps, Qingru appeared beside me with a snow pusher. "I'll work with you, Miyun." I didn't argue. I moved to the deepest section and started digging in. Each scoop came up heavy and full, and I tossed the snow to the roadside in smooth, easy swings. With dark force behind my arms, the frozen slabs cracked apart like nothing. Qingru followed behind me with her pusher, sweeping up whatever I missed. You're insanely strong, she said, eyes wide. One scoop from you is worth 10 pushes from me. It's just snow, I said without looking back. She chattered on as we worked. Don't you get scared living alone at night? It's so quiet out here. The wind makes the trees creak, and it's creepy. I couldn't do it. Quiet is exactly what I want. Not me, she said, sticking out her tongue. I need my sister right next to me, or I can't sleep. I smiled but didn't reply, just picked up the pace. I handled the heavy stuff up front, thick drifts, frozen chunks, while she cleaned up behind me. We fell into an easy rhythm and moved faster than anyone else on the site. She watched me work and murmured, "You're 100 times more useful than Chun Hong and his big mouth." I glanced back at her. Focus on your own work. Stop worrying about other people. Yes, sir. She grinned and kept pushing snow, bouncing along behind me without a hint of tiredness. We worked all afternoon clearing the main road to the logging site. By the time team leader Lu declared we were done, the path was clean and ready for work to restart tomorrow. On the walk home, Li Qing caught up to me with Jingshu at his side. Both of them looked a little sheepish. "Miyun, we need a favor," Li Qing said, tugging my sleeve. "Jingshu and I talked it over this afternoon while clearing snow. We want to move out of the settlement, just like you said." Jingshu explained quietly. "Our rations for this month are already in the common pot, so we'll eat at the settlement for now. But next month, when we get new rations, we want to cook for ourselves. We just don't know who to talk to or how the process works. Could you take us to team leader Lu?" Before I could answer, Qingru came bounding over, eyes sparkling. "Wait, we're really moving out? No more dealing with Chun Hong?" She grabbed her sister's arm and shook it excitedly. Jingshu tapped her forehead. "Keep your voice down, will you? Don't go announcing it to everyone." I looked at the three of them and figured it was a small thing to help with. We were all from Beijing, after all. It's no big deal. I'll take you to Lu right now. I waited outside the settlement while they ducked in to tidy up. They were back in minutes. The four of us walked through the snowy village to the brigade office, but Lu had already gone home for the evening. A couple of militiamen warming their hands over a fire pit told us where he lived. The brick house at the west end of the village, woodpile out front. We found the place and I knocked. Lu's booming voice came through the door. "Who is it? Come in." He was sitting on the Kong smoking his pipe. The moment he saw me, he grinned and waved us to the warm seats. I handed him a cigarette and lit it for him, like always. "So what brings you all over?" he asked, blowing a lazy smoke ring. I gestured to the three behind me. They'd like to rent a place in the village too. The settlement isn't working out for them. Lu's eyes went wide and his face broke into a huge smile. He slapped his thigh. "Wonderful. That's wonderful news." I could practically see the math running behind his eyes. More rent money for the brigade. He was thrilled. "We've got plenty of empty places," he said, waving toward the door. Several families moved to the commune, left their houses sitting empty. There are 2 nice little yards on the west side, close to Miyun's place. You'd practically be neighbors, perfect for looking out for each other. Li Qing and the sisters thanked him over and over. Lu held up a hand. "Only problem is, we can't do the paperwork tonight. Accountant Chen went to town this morning for supply reports and won't be back until late. Come to the brigade office first thing tomorrow morning and I'll have everything ready." They thanked him again and he shooed them out the door with a wave. "Go on, get back before it's too dark." Roads are slippery, but as the three of them disappeared into the snow, Lu's expression shifted. He reached over and patted my arm, keeping me behind. He had something else to talk about. I watched Li Qing and the sisters disappear into the snowy night, but Lu held me back. I raised an eyebrow. "Something else, team leader." He set down his pipe and grinned warmly. "No official business. I just figured. Those three have the settlement's kitchen to go back to, but you've got nothing but a cold stove waiting at home. Stay and eat with us tonight. Save yourself the trouble." He didn't have to ask twice. After a whole afternoon of clearing snow, the last thing I wanted was to go home and cook from scratch. I won't say no to that. "Thank you, and thank your wife too. Don't be so formal." He waved his big hand and hollered toward the back room. "Wife, throw on a couple extra grain cakes and fry up some sour cabbage with noodles. We've got a guest tonight." His wife's cheerful voice answered from the kitchen, followed by the clanking of pots and pans. The smell of food started drifting in almost immediately. Lu pulled me onto the warm Kong and packed his pipe. I handed him a cigarette instead and lit it for him, then lit one for myself. We settled in and started chatting. Just easy, comfortable talk. He told me about his family. He and his wife lived alone now. Their son worked at the state-run distillery in the county seat, managing the warehouse and production, a steady job with decent pay. Their daughter had married well. Her husband was a government official at the county level, treated her right, and was good to the old couple too, sending rice and cooking oil back to the village whenever he could. Only thing is, Lou sighed, a trace of loneliness creeping into his voice. Both kids are settled in the city, busy all year round, hardly ever make it home. It's just the two of us out here, feeding chickens and handling village business. You young people showing up has actually livened things up around here. I smiled. Your children are doing well, and you and Auntie get to enjoy your peace. Plenty of people would envy that. He laughed and launched into stories about his kids growing up, the warm room filling with smoke and easy laughter. Before long, his wife came out carrying a wooden tray loaded with dishes, far more than the couple of grain cakes Lou had asked for. The sour cabbage noodle stew was bubbling and rich, with thick, slippery sweet potato noodles, tangy pickled cabbage, and generous slices of pork belly nestled inside, the fat glistening in the lamplight. Dried beans and eggplant had soaked up all the meat juices. Next to that sat a plate of scrambled eggs, tender, golden, drizzled with sesame oil. In a time when meat and oil were luxuries, this was a serious spread. The main course wasn't just coarse grain cakes either. She'd steamed 2 mixed flour buns, which in these parts counted as proper hospitality. Lou patted the warmest spot on the Kong. Sit here, Muyun. Eat while it's hot. Then he pulled out a clay jug from the cabinet, cracked open the mud seal, and a wave of rich grain liquor smell filled the room. My son brewed this at the distillery. Pure grain, not a drop of water added. Try some. Can you drink? He asked, holding up a rough porcelain bowl. A little, I said. I'm not much of a drinker. That's fine. Just a bit to warm your bones. He poured me half a bowl, filled one for his wife, then topped off his own. Now eat. It'll get cold. Looking at the table full of food they'd put together for me, and the genuine warmth on both their faces, something in my chest softened. Thank you. This is really too much. Lou pretended to look stern. Hey, we're at home now. Don't call me team leader. Call me Uncle Lou, and call her Auntie Lou. We're family here. Now eat. Auntie Lou smiled and started piling pork slices and scrambled egg into my bowl. That's right, child. You worked hard all afternoon. You need to eat well. Don't hold back. The Kong was warm, the food was steaming, and the liquor glowed amber in our rough ceramic bowls. Uncle Lou picked up a slice of pork with his chopsticks and looked at me with genuine concern. So, Muyun, how are you settling in? Our little village can't compare to Beijing. If anything's bothering you, just tell your Uncle Lou. I took a small sip of liquor, smooth and warm going down. Honestly, I like it here. The mountains are quiet, the air is clean. It's not bad at all. Auntie Lou stopped piling food into my bowl and reached over to pat my arm. Her eyes were soft and worried. You sweet-talking child. Don't pretend it's the same as the city. And Muyun, is it true you're only 16? You're just a baby. Why would your family send you out here all alone? Her voice was so warm and motherly, it caught me off guard. I started to give the standard answer. Well, Auntie, responding to the national call for educated youth to go to the countryside is. Uncle Lou cut me off with a wave. Save it. There's no outsiders on this Kong. Keep that official talk for the committee meetings. Tell us the real reason. I set down my chopsticks and said simply, I have a younger brother at home. He's too small. Someone had to go. The two of them exchanged a look. They understood instantly. I'd volunteered so my brother wouldn't have to. Auntie Lou's eyes went damp. She patted my hand gently. You poor, good-hearted boy. Listen to me. From now on, this village is your home. If you need anything, if anyone gives you trouble, if you just want someone to talk to, you come find your Auntie Lou. You hear me? Thank you. Auntie, I said, and I meant it. Uncle Lou thumped his chest. She's right. You're family now. Then he broke into a huge grin. And let me tell you something. You're our village's lucky star. I was confused. Lucky star? I just got here. He could barely contain himself. You don't even know, do you? Our production team was short on its revenue target this year. Everyone was worried. Then you showed up and rented a house. Boom. That's real income for the brigade. Now today, 3 more youth want to rent because they saw you doing it. That's even more money. You single-handedly helped us hit our numbers. If that's not a lucky star, what is? I laughed and raised my bowl. That's all because you had good houses available, Uncle Lou. I just got lucky. He clinked his bowl against mine. Huh. Smart mouth too. Drink up. We ate and drank and talked for a long time. The sour cabbage stew disappeared. The scrambled eggs were nearly gone. The clay jug of grain liquor was more than half empty. Uncle Lou's face had turned bright red. His eyes were glazing over, and his words were starting to slur. He squinted at my bowl, my third, nearly finished, and wagged a finger at me. Miyun, you little liar. I looked at him innocently. What did I lie about? You said you can only drink a little. He slapped the table, sloshing a few drops of liquor. 3 bowls. 3 full bowls. And look at you. Not a drop of red on your face, steady as a rock. You call that not much of a drinker? Auntie Lou stared at me too, hand firmly on the jug to stop anyone from pouring more. Miyun, you're 16 years old. Your uncle and I have been drinking our whole lives and can't match you. But I'm telling you right now, liquor might taste good, but it's hard on the body. Don't make a habit of this. I smiled sheepishly. I really wasn't lying, Auntie. I'd barely ever drunk before. I had no idea I could handle this much. Uncle Lou's eyes went wide. He slapped his thigh. Our revival village got itself a drinking god. Hidden talent. Auntie Lou shot him a look, then turned back to me. Finish that bowl, and you're done. You've got logging tomorrow morning. No more. Yes, ma'am, I said obediently. Whatever you say. Uncle Lou was melting into the calm, waving his hand weakly. Don't even bother pouring more. My head's spinning. You win, Miyun. You absolutely win. We drained the last of our bowls. I stood up to leave. Auntie Lou immediately jumped up, worried. It's dark and icy out there. Let me walk you home with a flashlight. I shook my head firmly. I know the way. It's not far. Please, both of you get some rest. I'll be fine. I said goodnight to Uncle Lou and Auntie Lou and stepped out into the snowy night. The moon was bright on the fresh white ground, lighting the path like a lantern. With my dark force body, I walked steady and sure even where the road had iced over. Passing the youth settlement, I noticed the oil lamps still flickering inside. Out of the corner of my eye, I caught 2 shadowy figures hunched low, scarves pulled over their faces, slinking away toward the edge of the village. They clearly didn't want to be seen. I didn't care. Whatever they were up to had nothing to do with me. I got home, stoked the Kong fire, and fell asleep fast, the warm bed and the lingering glow of good liquor pulling me under within minutes. I slept deeply and woke before dawn feeling completely refreshed. But even that wasn't early enough. When I stepped outside to wash my face, Li Qing and the Su sisters were already standing at my gate, looking like they'd been waiting a while. Their faces were tight with frustration. What's wrong? I asked. Why so early? Li Qing stepped forward, barely keeping his voice down. We can't stand one more second in that place. Qingru jumped in, pouting. The minute we got back last night, Chun Hong ambushed us. He said we were off, kissing up to connections and pulling strings. The things he said were disgusting. Jingshu sighed. He stirred up the other youth against us too. Said we think we're special and don't want to live with everyone else. Li Qing's fists were clenched. I nearly punched him. People had to hold me back. That settlement is poisoned with him in it. We need to get the rental done today, right now. I understood. I grabbed 2 buns from inside, stuffed one in my mouth, and nodded. Let's go? No point waiting. The 4 of us walked briskly through the thin morning snow to the brigade office. Inside, Accountant Chun was already seated at his desk with his abacus laid out, smiling warmly. Uncle Lou had clearly gotten to him first thing in the morning. More rental income for the brigade meant a happy accountant. Good morning, Accountant Chun, I said. The other 3 echoed me. Chun stood up and waved us along. Lou already filled me in. Easy business. But first, let me show you the yard. The location couldn't be better. It's directly across the main road from Xiaozhou's place. You'll practically be neighbors. Qingru grabbed her sister's arm and bounced. That's perfect. We can just shout across the road if we need anything. We walked barely a minute before we were standing in front of the place. It sat right across from my yard, just one village road between us. The layout was almost identical to mine. 2 mud brick rooms facing south, walls solid and crack-free, windows freshly papered. The courtyard was clean and spacious, with a simple firewood shed along the west wall, a stone step in the corner, and an old apricot tree in the middle, bare now, but sure to be beautiful come spring. The wooden gate was old but sturdy. Chen pointed everything out cheerfully. 2 rooms, one for the sisters, one for Li Qing. Firewood sheds already built. Just sweep out the dust and wipe down the furniture, and you can move in today. Only thing you'll need to sort out on your own is pots, bowls, and cooking supplies. Li Qing and the sisters looked the yard over carefully and loved it. Clean rooms, solid walls, a proper courtyard, and my place right across the road. Compared to the mess at the settlement, it was a different world. Li Qing didn't hesitate. "We'll take it, Accountant Chen." Chen smiled and laid out the terms. 1 yuan a month, 12 yuan for the year up front, same as my deal. Future years could be partially deducted from work points if cash was tight. "Done," Li Qing said without blinking. "Anything to get out of the settlement." We walked back to the brigade office to sign the paperwork. Uncle Lu was already inside waiting, pipe in hand, grinning before we even said a word. When Li Qing confirmed they were renting, Lu clapped 3 times like he'd just won a prize. Chen wrote up the lease in neat brushstrokes. Dates, rent, responsibilities, all spelled out clearly. Li Qing counted out 12 yuan, signed his name, and pressed his thumbprint into the red ink. Chen split the document in 2 and handed him a copy. "Guard this carefully. It's your proof." Lu added one more thing. "You 3 are excused from logging today. Use the day to clean up your new place. Old Chen the cart driver is heading to the commune for supplies. Ride along and buy your pots, bowls, and cooking gear so you're ready to start living there." The sisters were visibly moved by how thoughtful he was. Jingshu bowed and thanked him warmly. I said my goodbyes and started to leave, but Lu grabbed my arm. "Hold on, Miyun. Work bell's about to ring. Walk with me to North Mountain." We headed out together through the snowy morning. On the way, he looked at me with genuine worry. "Miyun, logging is serious work. Swinging axes, pulling saws, it's all brute strength. You're young. If you get tired, take a break. I'm the team leader. Nobody's going to give you trouble for resting. I'll make sure of that." I kept my pace steady, boots crunching through the snow. "Uncle Lu, honestly, this kind of work isn't hard for me. I'll be fine." He studied my face, saw I wasn't just being stubborn, and nodded. "All right, but don't push yourself past your limit. Safety first." The logging site was already alive with noise when we arrived. Axes thudding, saws grinding, men shouting to each other across the hillside. Everyone was hard at work. I said goodbye to Lu and headed to find Dazhuang. He was crouched by the tool area, sharpening a saw and arranging axes. He looked up, glanced behind me, and frowned. "Where's Li Qing? How come it's just you?" "He's got the day off. Personal business," I said, picking up a sharp, wide-bladed axe. "Just you and me today," Dazhuang nodded and gave me his usual reminder. "Fine, but we've been off for 2 days because of the snow. Don't tell me you forgot everything I taught you. This job needs technique, not just muscle. Safety comes first, always." I hefted the axe, good weight, good balance, and nodded at Dazhuang. "Don't worry. Everything you taught me is right here," I said, tapping my head. "I'm not forgetting any of it. That's what I like to hear. Let's get to it." We picked out a tall, straight larch with a trunk about 35 centimeters across. Good, tight wood, top-quality lumber. Dazhuang pointed east toward a clearing. "We drop it that way. Watch out for the snow ditches." I stepped up and swung. The notch came out textbook perfect. Right angle, right depth, with chips flying clean. Every stroke landed exactly where the last one did. Dazhuang watched with raised eyebrows, but said nothing. We took up the 2-man saw, standing on opposite sides of the trunk, and started pulling. Dazhuang had planned to carry most of the weight, figuring I was young and would tire fast. But the moment we started, he realized my pulls were rock steady, perfectly timed, no wasted motion. I was holding back, using only the strength of a normal strong worker, nothing close to my real power. But even that was more than enough. Half an hour later, the trunk cracked, and I called out. "Timber!" The tree fell exactly where we'd aimed, crashing into the snowy clearing and sending up a cloud of white powder. Dazhuang stared at me and stuck up his thumb. "Unbelievable, Xiaozhou. I figured you'd need 2 breaks in the middle. You didn't even sweat. Your technique and your strength, it's 10 times better than when I started years ago." I shrugged. "Just following the steps. And working with a good partner helps." We cleaned the branches and cut the trunk into regulation-length sections. My cuts were smooth and precise, every measurement exact. Dazhuang shook his head in amazement. By mid-morning, we'd felled 2 full-sized trees. way ahead of every other team on the mountain. Dajwang suddenly grabbed my arm as I started eyeing a third tree. Hold on. Let's take a break. I was confused. We're doing great. Why stop? He pulled me to a sunny, sheltered spot out of the wind and sat me down. Listen, you're new here, so you don't know how things work yet. During your first 10 days, you get a fixed number of work points no matter what, whether you fell 10 trees or 1. It's a training period. You just have to show you're learning and putting in effort. He handed me a canteen and continued. If we keep going this fast, we'll make the experienced workers look bad. People will say they're slacking because 2 newcomers are outproducing them. That makes enemies. Better to slow down, take our time, rest when we want, and still collect the same points at the end of the day. Why kill ourselves for nothing? It clicked immediately. He was absolutely right. Showing off during a fixed pay period was pointless and could cause real problems. You're smarter than me about this stuff, Dajwang. We'll do it your way. Nice and easy. He grinned and leaned back against a tree trunk, soaking up the winter sun. 1 more tree this afternoon, and we're golden. Steady points, no trouble, no sore muscles. We sat in the quiet forest, chatting about village life, letting the morning's work settle. It was peaceful. When the lunch bell clanged across the mountain, everyone dropped their tools and lined up at the cook shed. Same meal as before, stewed cabbage and potato with a few precious slices of fatty pork and 4 dense corn buns each. Simple, same thing every day, but nobody complained. In a time when oil and meat were luxuries, a hot meal with a shimmer of grease on top was something to be grateful for. While Dajwang and I were up on North Mountain, Li Qing and the sisters rode Old Chin's ox cart to the commune to buy their kitchen supplies. I heard about it later. The supply cooperative had everything they needed: big iron woks, ceramic bowls, aluminum basins, bamboo chopsticks, cutting boards, water crocks. Qingru was practically bouncing off the walls pointing at things. Jingshu, careful as always, made sure nothing got missed: bowls, knives, oil jars, ladles, strainers, the works. The cashier tallied everything up and told them they were a few industrial coupons short. Without a moment's hesitation, all 3 of them pulled out every ticket and coupon their families had sent them with: grain coupons, industrial vouchers, cloth tickets, and spread the whole lot across the counter. Even the saleswoman was impressed. You kids don't hold back. Best of luck in your new home. They bought everything, packed it all up, and waited in the cold outside the store for Old Chun to finish his business. When he rolled up with the ox cart, he felt terrible for making them wait. They assured him they'd only been there a few minutes. He helped load the water crock, the iron pots, and all the bowls and utensils onto the cart, tied everything down tight, and they headed back to the village with a full load. Back on the mountain, Dajwang and I had a lazy, perfect afternoon. After our morning rest, we strolled deeper into the forest when the work bell rang. Dajwang laid out the plan. We already felled 2 this morning. That's more than enough to stand out. This afternoon, we pick the fattest tree we can find and take our sweet time with it. 1 tree, the whole afternoon. No rushing, no showing off, no sore muscles. Sounds right to me, I said. We found a monster, a larch with a trunk 45 centimeters across, a full 10 centimeters thicker than the morning's trees. Real timber. Dajwang slapped the bark and grinned. This one, big enough to keep us busy all afternoon without hurrying. I chopped the notch the usual way, controlled swings, textbook angle and depth, holding my power way back to match what a normal strong worker would do. Then we set up the 2-man saw and started pulling. Slow, steady, almost lazy. The saw bit into the thick trunk with a rhythmic creak, sawdust drifting down like snow. Dajwang chatted while we worked. People think logging is about brute force, but it's really about finesse. Keep the cut level, pull even, and slow work makes the cleanest cut. I can feel that, I said, matching his easy pace. Going slower is actually smoother. We spent the entire afternoon on that 1 tree. Sun filtering through the branches, snow melting on our shoulders, no pressure, no strain. When the trunk finally cracked and the big larch tipped over exactly where we'd aimed, crashing into the snowy slope in a cloud of white powder, it felt almost leisurely. We cleaned the branches and cut the sections at the same unhurried pace. By the time the quitting bell rang, we'd produced 1 beautifully processed tree. 1 tree in an entire afternoon, but done perfectly, well within the rules of our training period, and neither of us had broken a sweat. The evening sun turned the snow golden as I walked back from the mountain. Across the road from my yard, the new place was buzzing with activity. Li Qing was wiping down window frames. Jingshu was organizing the new pots and bowls, and Qingru was sweeping snow out of the courtyard. All three of them were sweaty but beaming. I strolled over and leaned against the open gate. Need a hand? Qingru nearly jumped out of her skin. She spun around, clutching her chest. Muyan, how do you walk without making any sound? You almost killed me. You owe me an apology. Li Qing and Jingshu turned and smiled, waving me in. Jingshu handed me a bowl of water. Sit down, rest. You've been logging all day. I looked around at the half-organized chaos and offered again to help, but Li Qing wouldn't hear of it. We're almost done. You worked way harder than us today. Then Jingshu's eyes lit up. Stay for dinner tonight. It's our first meal in the new house. You have to be here. Qingru forgot all about her scare and started bouncing. Yes. First dinner together. I asked if they weren't eating at the settlement this month since their rations were already in the common pot. Li Qing waved dismissively. Forget those rations. I'd rather lose the food than go back and listen to Chun Hong's garbage one more time. Jingshu leaned in with a conspiratorial smile. We bought pork at the commune today. I'm making stewed meat tonight. Pork. That settled it. Well, I'm definitely not saying no to that. Li Qing clapped my shoulder. You shouldn't. We still owe you for helping us get out of that place. A meal is the least we can do. I waved that off and told them I'd run home and come back shortly. Back at my yard, I thought about it. They were spending their precious pork on me. I couldn't show up empty-handed. I pulled out a cloth bag and scooped some fine white flour from my storage space. Not too much, just enough to mix with their cornmeal for some half-and-half steamed buns, which would taste a lot better than plain corn buns. I also grabbed a bottle of white liquor from my stash. When I walked back in carrying the bag and the bottle, Qingru ran over immediately. What's that? What did you bring? Some white flour, I said, handing the bag to Jingshu. Mix it with your cornmeal and steam some buns. They'll be softer than straight corn. Jingshu tried to push it back. We invited you. We can't take your flour. White flour is so precious. We're not strangers, I said firmly, pressing the bag into her hands. I live alone, and it'd just go to waste. Take it. Li Qing backed me up. Just accept it, Jingshu. He's already brought it. She blushed and took it gratefully, then hurried to the kitchen. She put all the pork they'd bought into the big iron wok with cabbage, glass noodles, and dried beans, and stewed the whole thing into a massive pot of meat and vegetables. The smell filled the entire courtyard. When everything was ready, we gathered around the Kong table. Steaming stewed pork, fluffy half-and-half buns, a real feast by countryside standards. Li Qing poured us each a small measure of the white liquor. He looked at me with a half-smile. 16 years old and already drinking? It's a special occasion, I said, turning the bowl in my fingers. Housewarming party. Jingshu and Qingru both set down their chopsticks and bowed to me together, voices soft and sincere. Thank you, Mia. Really. Without you, we'd still be stuck in that place. Stop thanking me, I said. It was nothing. Li Qing and I clinked bowls and took a sip. Jingshu served everyone chunks of tender pork. For a while we just ate and enjoyed the warmth. Then, quietly, the mood shifted. Jingshu set down her chopsticks and said what was on everyone's mind, her voice carrying a thread of sadness. Do you think we'll ever actually get to go home? The table went quiet the moment Jingshu said those words. Qingru's bun froze halfway to her mouth. Her eyes went red and her voice cracked. I think about going home every day. I miss my mom's cooking. I miss the dress my dad bought me. I keep telling myself it won't be long. Jingshu patted her sister's hand gently. I want to go back too. But I've heard the old villagers talk. The earliest groups of youth who came here, some of them already have families now. It might be years. Maybe longer. Li Qing tightened his grip on his bowl and looked at Jingshu. However long it takes, I'll wait. As long as I'm with you, I don't care where we are. It was a sweet thing to say, but I couldn't let them float on false hope. I set down my chopsticks and spoke honestly. Don't be too optimistic. Before I left Beijing, I asked around. Hardly any of the youth who came after the first wave have gone back. Policy doesn't change on a whim, Jingshu sighed. The last flicker of hope in her eyes faded. Then we'd better prepare for the long haul. Qingru's head shot up, eyes wide with panic. How long? I really don't want to stay out here forever. There's nothing to do, nowhere to go. I decided to lighten the mood. Don't worry, Qingru. I've heard the local folks are actually pretty eager to marry educated city girls. You're smart, you're pretty. If you can't go home, you could always settle down with a nice local man. No way. She turned bright red and whipped her face away. I am not marrying some rough country guy. They're all dark and weathered and… No. We all burst out laughing. She puffed up her cheeks and stamped her foot. Stop laughing at me. Li Qing calmed her down, then turned to me with a more serious look. What about you, Mian? If we really never go back, would you marry someone here and settle down? I took a slow sip of liquor and stared out the dark window. Who can say? I'm 16. Marriage is a long way off. I'll take it one step at a time. But what if? Li Qing pressed. What if the policy never changes? I shook my head. Then I deal with it. Can't live in a dream forever. Qingru's eyes suddenly lit up. Before I knew what was happening, she blurted out. If that's how it is, then I'll marry you. Dead silence. Everyone froze. I blinked, then couldn't help laughing. You? I think I'll pass. She lunged forward, cheeks puffed. Why not? Am I not pretty? You're pretty, I admitted. She really was. Bright eyes, lively face. Then why won't you let me marry you? I looked at her and said calmly. You're older than me. Her jaw dropped. Are you serious? I haven't even complained about you being younger. And you have a problem with me being older? It's only 2 years. She was ranting so hard, she didn't notice Jingshu and Li Qing exchanging glances, both biting back laughter. When she finally caught them grinning and saw me trying not to smile, the realization of what she'd just said hit her all at once. Her face went from pink to crimson in about half a second. Cheeks, ears, neck, all glowing. She stumbled backward, waving her hands. That's not. I just meant I don't want to marry a local. That's all. I didn't mean. We all laughed again. And this time, even she couldn't help a tiny, embarrassed smile. In a place like this, in times like these, that kind of innocent, silly warmth was worth more than gold. We ate and drank until the night grew deep. When I finally stood to leave, all 3 of them tried to stop me. Li Qing wanted me to stay longer. Jingshu worried about ice on the road. Qingru volunteered to walk me home. I waved them all off. It's literally across the road. I'll survive. Li Qing shook his head in amazement. I still can't believe you're drinking. You put away about 7/10 of that bottle. I had the rest and my head spinning. You look completely sober. Jingshu pressed 2 leftover buns into my hands. In case you get hungry in the night. Just warm them on the stove. Thanks, Jingshu, I said, and waved goodbye. They stood at their gate watching until I crossed the road and disappeared into my own yard. I washed my face with warm water, blew out the lamp, and lay down on the hot kong. The gentle haze of liquor wrapped around me, and within minutes I was asleep. The next morning, I grabbed the 2 buns Jingshu had given me the night before, washed them down with cold water, and headed to North Mountain with my axe and saw. Li Qing was back, rental business done, officially moved out of the settlement, ready to work. Dazhuang was waiting for us, smoking by a tree stump. He grinned when he saw the 3 of us together. Good, 3-man team today, he said. We can take turns resting. Then he looked at Li Qing seriously. But you've been off for days, and you were barely trained to begin with. Safety first. This morning, just watch. Miyun and I will fell a tree while you stand in the safe zone and study every single step. Don't touch a tool until I say so. Li Qing nodded eagerly. Got it. I'll watch carefully. Dazhuang and I picked a medium-sized tree. I chopped the notch, clean, precise, standard angles, while Dazhuang cleared wood chips and explained every detail to Li Qing in a loud voice. See the depth? See the angle? This is what decides where the tree falls. Get it wrong by an inch and someone could die. Li Qing stood in the marked safe area, eyes glued to us, hands unconsciously mimicking the movements. We took up the 2-man saw and worked at a deliberately slow pace. Dazhuang used the time to teach technique. Pull even, don't yank. This job runs on finesse, not brute force. Going slow is actually safer and smoother. The whole morning, we felled just 1 tree. Nearby teams noticed and started whispering. Look at those 2 city kids with Dazhuang. 1 tree all morning? A snail's faster than that. Must be too soft for real work. Spoiled city types. Pure time wasting if you ask me. Dazhuang just smiled. I ignored them completely. Li Qing's face reddened a little, but Dazhuang slapped his shoulder. Forget them. We're here to learn properly, not race. Slow and solid beats fast and sloppy every time. After the lunch break, Dazhuang switched things up. This afternoon, Li Qing, you're the lead. Muyun assists. I supervise. Time to get your hands dirty for real. Li Qing's eyes lit up, equal parts excited and nervous. Really? I won't let you down. We found a good practice tree. Straight trunk. Not too thick, not too thin. Dazhuang stood back and pointed. Step 1. Pick the fall direction. Tell me what you choose. Li Qing walked a full circle around the tree, studying it carefully, then pointed south toward an open clearing. This way? No other trees, flat ground, safe. Dazhuang gave a thumbs up. Perfect choice. Li Qing took a deep breath, gripped the axe, dropped into a wide stance, and swung. His first chop landed slightly off-center. Sink your waist half an inch more, Dazhuang called out instantly. Steady your wrist. Drive the force into the center of the notch. Li Qing adjusted and kept chopping. Blow by blow, he found his rhythm. The triangular notch took shape, proper depth, proper angle. I crouched beside him clearing chips, quietly encouraging him. Take your time. No rush. Then we set up the saw, Li Qing pulling lead, me assisting. Dazhuang stayed right there, coaching every stroke. Even pressure. Match the rhythm. Don't jerk it. Sweat beaded on Li Qing's forehead. His arms started shaking. But he kept going, following instructions to the letter. I matched his pace exactly. Not pulling ahead, not dragging behind, letting him feel fully in control. It took the entire afternoon. By the time the trunk finally cracked and the tree toppled exactly where Li Qing had aimed, the quitting bell was practically ringing. He doubled over the saw handle, gasping, but his face was pure joy. Dazhuang was genuinely impressed. First time leading, and you nailed every step. Direction, notch, saw work, all solid. You're 10 times better than I was when I started. A few more days, and you'll be doing this solo. Li Qing wiped his forehead and beamed. Only because you taught me so well, and Muyun backed me up perfectly. I patted his arm. You earned it. That was all you. One tree in an entire afternoon. Slow by any measure. But Li Qing had truly learned the craft from start to finish, and that was worth more than any number of felled trees. The next morning, Li Qing showed up to work practically buzzing with energy. After yesterday's breakthrough as lead man, he was ready to prove himself again. But Dazhuang pulled him aside with a sly grin and lowered his voice. Easy there. No need to rush. We're a 3-man team now. 2 trees a day is plenty to hit our guaranteed work points. The rest of the time, we rest, we chat, we take it easy. During the training period, it doesn't matter if we fell 2 trees or 20, the pay's the same. Why kill ourselves? Li Qing's eyes went wide, then crinkled into a grin. Oh, so that's the plan. I'm in, I shrugged. Whatever you two decide. 2 trees is fine by me, and that's exactly what we did. We picked 2 medium-sized larches and worked at a leisurely pace. Li Qing took the lead, choosing the fall direction carefully, chopping the notch slowly and neatly. I crouched beside him clearing chips and handing him water. Dazhuang leaned against a trunk smoking, tossing out the occasional pointer between village gossip. We took turns resting. Nobody broke a sweat. By quitting time, we had 2 cleanly felled and processed trees. Meanwhile, the other teams had been going all out. Pairs of youth knocking down a dozen or more trees a day, earning 8 or 9 work points each. The villagers were even faster, pulling in 10 or 12 points daily. Our measly 2 trees stood out on the scorekeeper's sheet like a sore thumb. Shenhong noticed, of course. He was leaning against a snow pile with his usual crowd, and I could hear him from across the clearing. Look at those 3. 2 trees? All day? That's pathetic. Even a first-day beginner does better than that. One of his buddies chimed in. Glad they moved out of the settlement. At least we're not subsidizing their food anymore. Dazhuang snorted and blew a smoke ring. Li Qing rolled his eyes. I didn't even look their way. We were comfortable, our points were secure, and their sour words meant nothing. This became our routine for the rest of the training period. Every morning, Dazhuang would stroll through the forest, pick out 2 trees, and call us over. These 2. Same rules. No heroics. Li Qing would take the lead. I'd assist. Dazhuang would supervise from the comfort of a tree stump, smoking and spinning stories about the village, who was trying to marry off their daughter, how Li Qing's new house was coming along, what old Wang's chickens got in the last week. We'd saw at an easy rhythm. When Li Qing's arms got tired, we'd stop for water. When Dazhuang ran out of gossip, we'd sit in the sun and eat. At lunch, other teams would tease us. Slacking again, Dazhuang. He'd just grin. Points are points. Why break my back for the same pay? Li Qing would nod through a mouthful of corn bun. Exactly. I'd keep my head down over my stew and say nothing. Every evening, our two neatly stacked trees looked pitiful next to everyone else's output. But the three of us walked home relaxed, rested, and content. No sore muscles, no exhaustion, full work points in our pockets. Let the others talk. We had it figured out. On the last day of the training period, team leader Lu came over to deliver the news personally. Starting tomorrow, no more guaranteed points. Your work points depend entirely on how much you produce. More trees, more points. Fewer trees, fewer points. Those points decide your monthly grain ration, so it's all on you now. I nodded. Understood. Li Qing said the same. I'll work hard. As long as I earn enough for food, I'm happy. Lu turned to Dazhuang. What's the plan for teams? Dazhuang stepped forward. Muyun and I are pairing up. We've already talked it over, and Li Qing, Dazhuang had that covered too. I set him up with Wang Zhizi from the village. Solid guy, reliable, just a little slower than the fastest workers, so nobody else wants to team with him. But he's plenty fast enough for Li Qing's purposes. Li Qing waved it off cheerfully. Fine by me. I'm not competing with anyone. Enough to eat is enough for me. Lu nodded, satisfied, and left to check on other teams. That night, I prepared for the real start. I kneaded dough and steamed a whole tray of big, fluffy buns. White flour mixed with cornmeal, dense and filling. The next morning before dawn, I stood at the stove and ate 6 of them straight, one after another. No crumbs left. Warm food in my belly, cold pushed out. Today was the first day that mattered. No more training wheels. Every tree counted. I grabbed my tools and headed to North Mountain. Dazhuang was already there, and for the first time since I'd known him, he wasn't lounging on a stump with his pipe. He was standing alert, scanning the forest, all business. The lazy, easygoing Dazhuang from the past 10 days was gone. He saw me, and his voice was sharp and focused. Today we work for real. No more slacking. Let's go, I said. We picked 2 tall larches standing side by side, both about 40 centimeters across, solid timber. Dazhuang pointed west toward the clearing. I confirmed the fall direction. Everything checked out. I took up the axe and went to work.